Morning, Tato, everyone. Welcome staff, welcome elected members. We don't have an apology from Rodney because he's on the screen and we can see him now with the beautiful bit of scenery behind him. Enjoy your holiday, and I'm sure this is going to be a great start to it. Can I now please pass over to Councillor Willison for an opening karakia?
Morena tato ke no tato e te atu whaharau tēnei tonu mate te whakapita ko mo te atu kia koe kia koe wai haro me te inoi kia koe kia koe tō kia tō ngā tōna mai te chaki maa ma tāma whakora ki me te king i runga hoki ngā mea katoa e tōi mahana ta tura ke mātou e hui nei i raro tūnu e tēnei tato ni hui e pāu te mai te poroa te chaki maa ma tāma whakora ki me mea mātou te kauni i roa whanga mai wana hoki ngā kaupapa whera te kuna me mātou ngeni tamahi whakati ake ake
Thank you. And I'll pass over to Councillor Hughes for morning words of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Words of wisdom come from a gentleman called Friedrich Nietzsche, who's a 19th century German philosopher. And he said, there will always be rocks in the road ahead of us. They will be stumbling blocks or stepping stones. It all depends on how you use them.
Thank you, Councillor. As I said, we have no apologies, nobody in our public forum today. We did have the one late item, which is item 124. So I'll move that they be included in today's agenda, or would we just say that it's a
Sorry, this is kind of all new. We don't really do late items, so let's just get the process right here. So there we are. We've got a script that Amanda read.
Read the script. That Ōtorohanga District Council, A, accept the late item 124, resolution to exclude the public for item P11, additional financial delegation of the Chief Executive for property purchase, and B, accept the associated public excluded agenda, acknowledging elected members waive the two clear working day requirements, and C, acknowledge the urgency due to the recent negotiations undertaken with the property owner, and D, confirm the order of the meeting as indicated in the agenda with the late item to be heard in the public excluded section of the agenda. I'd like to move that. Second, Councillor Williams. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Any councillors feel the need to declare a conflict of interest in today's agenda? Okay, thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Oh, excuse me. Okay, that the Ōtorohanga District Council confirms true and correct recording of the meeting. That will be, sorry, I'll get back to the correct page here. Sorry, the meeting, the unconfirmed open minutes of the Ōtorohanga District Council meeting held 27th of February 2004. Do I have a move on a second for those? Move Councillor Jeffrey, second Councillor Johnson. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Receipt of the minutes. The Ōtorohanga District Council received the unconfirmed minutes for the Ōtorohanga Community Board meeting held on 4th March and the unconfirmed minutes from the Kāwhia Community Board meeting held 7th March. Move from the second of those, please. Move Councillor Hughes, second Councillor Jeffries. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Now, my verbal report of what I've been up to for the last month on council business. Following our last council meeting on the 27th of February, I went down to Wellington to attend the hui of the Mayor's Task Force Jobs Coordinators. They're getting some training over a few days down in Wellington at the Wellington Zoo of all places, which is quite interesting. I've never been to the Wellington Zoo before. And then I had a meeting with MSD again about where we're currently working with the funding model and what the future direction of the community employment programs will be. On the 29th, on return home, I had a meeting with Mayor Susan O'Regan, and that there was all about the discussions we had at the end of last year as councillors and where that was heading how we can work more collaboratively. Obviously, any of the words that Councillor Robertson had made recently, just to ensure that the conversation was across 3 councils, not just centred on the southern councils. So that there was a good catch up with her. Then I came back and had a meeting with the auditors, with Tanya and Brendan. Yep. On the weekend, beginning the 1st of March, the first Tui Wānanga was held at Te Kotahitanga Marae. So thanks to everybody who helped out there, especially the staff that were involved in this, and those that came to the pottery. The wānanga went very, very well. There's so I've got my rangatahi this year is Mystique. She works out at Ōtorohanga, but she went to school here. There's about 70 rangatahi from across the country came together for the weekend. So you see them at the beginning. It's really interesting because all these young people are incredibly nervous about coming together and catching up. And then by the end of the weekend, it's just a totally different environment. Then you watch as the year goes on. It's really quite wonderful to be a part of. We had a Zone 2 meeting at Don Rollins Centre on the 8th. A couple of councillors, a few councillors went to for us, which is really good. Following the Waikato Mayoral Forum, we had a mayors and chairs, Hui and Te Kuiti on the 11th. Local water's done well was kind of at the top of the agenda there, so Tanya will talk to that later, I believe, at some stage. We had elected members workshop on the 12th of March. We went out to Makatu Marae to the Pokai, attended by King Tahitia, and we had a good elected member turnout there. It was a really good day. Tanya and myself met with the Mayor and CEO of Waitomo on the 14th. You can imagine what that was about. We had a meeting with the area commander on the 18th, rural water scheme updates for the water scheme members on the 19th. Then we did see performance review that afternoon, risk and assurance meeting, and then an ATSC wall meeting on the 20th. And then Ross and I caught up with the Lions Company about an initiative on the 21st, and then Waikato prison update, so on the same day. And the Waikato prison update is about what the intentions are going forward with the potential of further construction out there. That still depends on the finance to come through. Anyway, any questions on my report? Anyone? Yes, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I was just interested in what the initiative with the Lions Company is about.
About it's a shared cost initiative with making this building a lot smarter to start with. So in terms of, because obviously your Lions Company fees or charges go in terms of where your usage, power usages and so on. So it'll be about having the air conditioning units in here going pretty much in cruise mode, and then kind of firing up in the morning prior to staff coming into work, and then getting the building up to temperature, and then going down at those peak hours to, again, just a cruise mode, that we're not going in there and heating the building unnecessarily. And in the afternoons, all the heat pumps get turned off automatically at 5 o'clock, so it doesn't come down to the likes of myself walking out of my office, leaving the heat pump on at night, as an example. Also, the use of solar power on this building and potentially the library, and just sharing the power usage, giving back to the network and so on. So it's just making it more efficient and thinking where we are going forward. So yeah, it's a pretty good initiative. There's nothing further. I'd like my report to be received. My report to be received. Councillor Prendergast, in favour. Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 114, the draft framework for climate change response. Welcome, Ross.
Right, through Your Worship, we're going to try and use some newfangled technology here, so just bear with us for a minute, please.
Morena koutou. This report has, excuse me, this report's been considered by the Risk and Assurance Committee at their meeting last week, but it's brought forward to today's meeting for your consideration and endorsement in terms of the approach that's been proposed. What I thought might be useful for you today is just to quickly run through the presentation I provided to the committee last week. So it's really taking some of the key elements out of my report, which I'll take as read. Essentially, we're looking at a project scope that has three core elements in it. So the first is looking at us as corporate and what are we doing in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, energy use, and I guess it goes in part to His Worship's earlier comment around the opportunities we're exploring with the Lines Company. So what can we do to reduce our carbon footprint? So that's essentially a mitigation focused area. The other two areas are looking at resilience. So that's a combination of our infrastructure and how it interacts, serves, or maybe doesn't serve over the long term our community. So those are adaptation focus areas. And then just want to highlight that while a number of other initiatives around the country from being led by other councils, excuse me, also consider the wider community, we're not looking to provide a focus in terms of our district's greenhouse gas emissions. My view is that there are other initiatives and other organisations that are providing support and a focus on those, both at a national and at a regional level. Now, if there's an enabling or facilitating role that we might take in that process, then I'm sure we're certainly up for considering that. So in terms of the structure that I'm suggesting, and liken it to a roadmap. So
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, as I said, this is new technology, but Ross might need to move slightly to one side because your head was in the middle of the text and we can't read it.
Okay.
But now Kaya's switched it, or someone switched it and put presenter. Yeah. Oh.
I haven't touched anything. Shall I just carry on?
Yeah.
So essentially the structure for the document is divided into two parts. So the first is really the context, and we're drawing on information that's already available, both at a global, national and local, regional, and bringing in elements of risk and response. So what are the risks in terms of climate change? What do we know around some of the responses at national and regional levels? And then sort of linking the two parts of the document is really our focus on engaging with our communities and our partners and stakeholders, how we might do that. And then I guess the pithy part is the response plan. So this looks at pathways to achieving some of the outcomes that we might be collectively looking for. So it's looking from an activity function point of view and linking that to people in place. So while we may have a very clear view around the likely impacts of climate change, where they land and the level of that impact will probably change based on location. So that's the place bit. And then providing some context for each of those challenges, issues, risks, and so on, and then into actions. So this is a pretty useful model that many other councils and organisations are using. It's a bit of a mouthful: dynamic adaptive policy pathways, DAP for short. So essentially it's a 10-step decision support process and support model. So essentially it's what's happening, what's important, or what matters most to people, what can we do about it, how can we implement the things that we want to do about it, and then as we're implementing and looking back, how are these things working? And so it becomes a continuous circle of sort of plan, do, check, act, and then keep rotating around. So, excuse me, so gap in action. So this is an example that I provided to the committee last week. So looking at where we are now, so in this model, it's the current situation and something's happening and we've reached a point where a decision or a trigger and then the decision needs to happen. So the example I gave last week is the Kawhia Museum. So that's on the foreshore in Kawhia. We know from some of the projected impacts that sea level is expected to rise by up to a metre in the next sort of 50 or 100 years. And when you add in storm events, storm surge, you can see that as it has in the past, that area of the foreshore is likely to be increasingly subject to inundation events. So in terms of the museum itself, perhaps one of the pathways and the triggers associated with that might relate to raising the floor level, or raising the building to raise the floor level. And so that might be a pathway that's adopted for a period of time, and as sea level continues to rise as projected, and those impacts become more evident and then more extreme, there might be another pathway that's already been planned for, and that might be, for example, the relocation of the museum building. So you can see when you apply this on the ground and look at real world situations, you can develop a series of informed actions or pathways that have their own monitoring and trigger points. And when you get to those trigger points, unless the context has changed, you would expect them perhaps to move down that particular pathway. And then whatever the duration of that pathway may be, then there'll be trigger points for subsequent pathways. So one of the things we like to do in smaller councils is look at what other councils are doing in various spaces, and looking at the climate change response plan space. We've looked at a number of other councils, and the model that I quite like, so some of the structure that I'll be talking to you and is inherent in the report, has been drawn or adapted from the Waikato Regional Council plan. So why is this a useful model in my eyes? So it's got all of the key information, but it's presented in a way that's understandable and it's not lengthy. So short, sharp, supported by graphics. And then when we look at how that might translate into action, what the Regional Council have done is provided their strategic context. So how do these things impact or align with the Waikato Regional Council's strategic goals? And then what are the areas of focus or priority, which they've called their commitment? So I'd anticipate we would have something similar, and then coming from each of these might be a series of actions, which we would need to work through with our partner stakeholders and community to flesh out. So I'll just make a couple of other points around timing, and happy to answer any questions. So in terms of maybe timing, that because that context information is already largely available, I think it's going to be relatively easy to provide a local context using that information. And then alongside that, I think because we've already been on a journey in terms of looking at some initiatives that now, I think with the benefit of hindsight, will fit nicely into an emissions reduction plan for our organisation operation. You know, things like vehicle purchase, moving to more efficient sort of lighting and heating. We can quickly bring together a draft emissions plan for our organisation. So for those two things, I think over the next sort of 3 or 4 months, I think that can be achievable. But the real meat of this is the response plan that needs to be developed in conjunction with our partners, stakeholders and community. And I'd suggest that's probably a 12 to 15 month piece of work to do that well. We've certainly, I've shared some of the thinking with the regional council and staff, and we've got support from staff to help us on this journey. I'm also suggesting that it would be really useful to bring together representative groups within our community that help us along this journey. So obviously connect into their communities, but also provide us with feedback. So it's not instead of us engaging with communities, it's as well as us engaging with our communities. You may recall then in terms of resourcing for this, you've signalled in your draft LTP budgets to this point some funding to support the development of this plan. What that looks like in terms of how that's used, I guess, remains to be seen. The more we can utilise the support and resources from the likes of the regional council, the more resourcing we've got available potentially to look at other aspects of supporting the project. So I don't, Your Worship, intend to say any more, but happy to answer any questions that members may have.
Thanks, Ross. Like in terms of going forward, you said about obviously engaging with other stakeholders in the community. One would obviously be looking outside of that as well in terms of the other organisations that could potentially play a part. There's obviously the conversations already with the Lions Company in terms of what we're doing with our environmental impact, but there must be others out there that will come to the fore, I imagine, at the time.
Yes. Yes. So Waka Kotahi is an obvious organisation. So some of this dynamic adaptive pathway, policy pathway stuff, you can apply that to the state highway, for example. So I'd like to think that through this process, we're engaging with Waka Kotahi in terms of what are their future plans, what's their future thinking around lifting or ensuring the resilience of the state highway network, and how do we fit into that in terms of, you know, alignment with our own local road network.
True, thank you. Questions, councillors? Councillor Chris.
I was looking at the CoLab report, and it said that we don't use them for energy and carbon management. Is this something that would feed into this, that we could use them?
I'm part of a regional network, so we're looking just specifically in terms of that CoLab initiative. We're leveraging staff from the Lions Company to help with some of that. So we're looking to, I guess, minimise the cost and maximise the value that we're getting out of our various relationships. So,
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, thanks, Ross. Something that occurred to me after we'd had our risk and assurance meeting was under your heading climate change risks, which was under the heading document plan structure and your roadmap. I just wondered whether, as part of the coastal inundation and sea level rise, whether that includes the potentially the pollution of the harbour, because the number of septic tanks right along that Carfia foreshore area, should the sea rise by a metre, puts immediately things at risk. Now, I appreciate this is a long-term thing, but I just wondered whether that had been considered at that stage as part of your maybe.
Yes, thank you, councillor. So yes, but at a high level, you're absolutely right that as sea level rises, the effectiveness and efficiency of things that rely on operating above groundwater are going to be impacted over time as groundwater rises. So I think, again, that's probably another example where you can apply that DAP model and say, what are the triggers that we may need to put in place, and then as we approach those, what are the alternative, pathways that we need to put in place. So again, that's why it's so important that, this project is advanced closely with our community stakeholders and partners.
Thanks, Ross. And just one further question, very quick one. You used the Carphy Museum as an example. As far as the consultation with Evie is concerned, have the trustees at Makatū Marae, have they been spoken with? Because that marae would be at risk as well.
Potentially, but we're at the starting point of this process, so we haven't engaged, apart from connecting in with the likes of, the regional council and Waka Kotahi in terms of this work coming up. So I'd anticipate that we could with all of those key organisations and stakeholders. And I guess part of the thinking around the group that's representative of the committee would be, in my mind at least, looking at people who are connected back into those, those groups and organisations. So we've got the right people around the table.
Through you, Your Worship, if I can just add to that, when Jamie McClellan and I went to the Ōkapu Marae AGM to talk about the seawall consent, there was lots of kōrero around sea level rise, around climate change. Yeah, it was great to hear just how plugged in some of the members were around that and asking questions around working with council on plans and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was great.
Thanks. Yeah, councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarification, Ross, so the DAP model will be, there'll be preconceived lists of like strategic assets drawn up, and that model applied to each and every one of those. Say like for stormwater systems in town, which could be inundated through weather events. So that will apply to that, will it? Those sorts of things as well.
So my thinking, and Mark and I haven't had a detailed conversation, is that's part of the context. We need to understand what infrastructure, what assets we've got, and what their capacity and capability is, and then apply the lens, I guess, of the expected climate change impacts over the top of that, and then use that as, I guess, an input into the conversations that we then need to have with our community around, that wider question of community resilience.
Just say that because you use the Carphy Museum as an example, so that's an asset that we have. So if we can apply the model to that, then we'll apply it to all individual assets we have within that, and there might be some crossover as far as things like the stock banks, which go into the regional council thing as well. So that's where that comes in. So
yes,
correct?
Yes, and you may have picked up from the concept plan projects that we've started to introduce some of those climate related risks. So in the Carphy plan, we've got the projected inundation zones included. So that's another part of, I guess, the information picture that will be building up and then discussing with our community.
Thank you, Ross. It's great. Cheers.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Ross. Just with regards to the framework, proposed framework and structure, I'm just looking on page 34. It says that in summary, the CCRP that needs to yeah, third or fourth bullet point down there, present data on existing emission levels and trends and commitments. So is that just for our council organisation, or is that as the district as a whole?
That's the district as a whole, and we have access to that data. So we are part of a collective across the region where all of the city, well, districts and the city have profile information using standard methodology.
Yeah, I just like to point out, I mean, farmers get beaten up enough about their emission levels with no relevance to the economic benefit to the community. And I just wouldn't like to see us as a council jumping on that bandwagon as well, because we rely on farmers so much for our economic development, not to mention our rates. So yeah, I just don't think we need to be part of the farmer beat up as well as everybody else.
And I think for that reason, amongst others, why that is not part of the scope of the work that we're proposing to do.
Thank you, Ross. Don't beat up the farmer. No further questions, councillors. If not, I have a staff recommendation here that the Ōtorohanga District Council endorse a framework structure for developing the Ōtorohanga Climate Change Response Plan. I've moved a seconder, moved Councillor Jeffrey, second Councillor Hughes, all in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 115, Ross stays where he is. And the Kawha Aotea, Ōtorohanga and Ōtorohanga Rural Concept Plans Adoption of Drafts for Consultation.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So first, just note that Sam Foster from Becca has joined us. So
Welcome, Sam.
you'll recall that.
Thank you.
Yep. Becca have been with us from the start of this journey. So as you've indicated, Your Worship, so we're now at a point where I'm seeking from you your endorsement and approval or adoption of these documents as draft for consultation. And as I've alluded to in my report, that engagement consultation period will run concurrently with the LTP. So essentially, we've now reached a point where what's before you is the culmination of investigations, assessments, and analysis that has largely been undertaken by Sam and the Becca team. And it's also the distillation of the feedback that we received from partners, stakeholders, and the wider community. You'll see towards the back of the document, each of the documents is the implementation framework. So that's a series of potential projects and actions that are grouped under various themes. And what we've tried to do is give a bit of a sense for our communities, the likely timing of those in terms of short, medium, and long term. So short term, essentially over a kind of 3-year period that you'd associate with each LTP timing. And then medium term, sort of 4 to 10 years, and then long term after 10 years. And in many cases, just like the Ōtorohanga Town Concept Plan, some of the bigger projects have multiple phases or steps that we would need to go through. And a lot of that has to do with finalising the scope of these projects or actions, and obviously associated costs. And in that regard, we've provided just really high level cost ranges, essentially low, medium, and high. And as I say, that will be subject to refinement once we get to the point where those projects or actions are confirmed in the plans, and there's some overall prioritisation process applied. So you'll recall from the Ōtorohanga Town Concept Plan, which we're now in the implementation phase of, council provided direction around the priorities. Now once these other 2 plans come on board, we'll have 3 sets of implementation actions And depending on where council lands with the adopted LTP, we will still have a fixed amount of resourcing available to be able to support the implementation of those. So prioritisation will be quite critical. I'll just note that some areas of the concept plan documents are still to be filled in. So we're working with our partners in relation to some of that information. And essentially, while it's not ready for today, we're hopeful that much of the information will be ready for inclusion as draft information in these draft documents when we start the engagement period in early April. And in that regard, we're looking at replicating what we've done previously in terms of both online and in-person engagement. So we're scheduling drop-in sessions in April, around the middle of April, in Kāwhia, out at Ōtorohanga, and here in Ōtorohanga. And they seem to work well across the two phases, earlier phases of both these projects. So people will be able to provide online feedback as well. And we're looking at running a hearings session, probably out at Kāwhia for one, and maybe dovetailed in with the LTP on the same day, but obviously two separate processes, and then again here in Ōtorohanga. And we'll make that opportunity clear to people as they make submissions. Some people might be just happy to provide feedback, don't want to, appear in support of their feedback or a submission, whereas others might want to speak. And in that regard, we're looking at, when it comes to consideration and deliberations on feedback and submissions, we're looking to follow a similar approach and process for considering and determining submissions as was undertaken for the Ōtorohanga concept plan. So we'll see a specific recommendation covering that. So I don't propose to say any more other than it's really great to be at this point. A lot of work's gone in. The Becker team have produced some quality information and material for us, and that's going to serve our community well into the future. So happy to take any questions. Any of the really hard ones I'll pass on to Sam at Becker.
Thanks, Ross. I'm sure you will. Any questions, anyone? Yes, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Worship. Not a question, but just want to endorse your closing statement there. It's, the great documents, both of them, and and the contents, like on page 15, the rural one, like who we are. It really is a statement about the whole document and the process, who we are. And good to have them recognise the district as a whole.
Yes.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Councillor Jeffries.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I endorse Councillor Williams' comments there. Ross, I think that yourself and Beckers have done a great job with these, so I just want to say thank you for that. Just one question that I had, and it may be a bit out of left field. We've got the three concept plans for Kāwhia, Aotea Rural and Ōtorohanga. Are any of those plans contingent upon things happening in any of the other concept plans? Is there a crossover between, say, rural and Kāwhia? So something needs to happen in this area in order to, or is that a dumb question?
No, I think it's a very good question. So you'll see that there are some themes coming through. So arts, culture, heritage, for example, is a theme. Transportation, not just roads, are a theme across all three. So there is some connectivity and alignment. And it was, I guess it's, Sam, I have a comment on this, but it's really pleasing that a lot of that has actually come from the feedback, not us saying, oh, this is what we heard in Ōtorohanga. So it probably applies here. It's those communities telling us these things are things that, are important to them and they'd like to see Agreed.
Councillor Prendergast.
Through you, your worship, and Ross, yeah, again, just reiterating everyone else's comments and the word that came to mind for me was meaningful. These plans are meaningful to the communities. Just with the consultation, I think I'm working it out right. The upcoming consultation will be the first week back after the school holidays. So just making sure that the comps are getting out. Yes. Because I'm like in our case, you might only get one school newsletter that will come out the day before.
Right.
Thank you.
I know, Helen's been really active in terms of, reconnecting, on that comms, front as we have right through the process. So at this stage, we're looking at, the Ōtorohanga drop-in session on Saturday the 13th, the Arahina session on Thursday the 18th, I think it is, and then Saturday the 20th out at Cardiff. So can I just acknowledge the feedback that you've provided around this project, but just reiterate, as I do many times, this is a team effort. So we've got a team from Becca and a team here at council. So I just happen to be fortunate that I'm being supported by quite a number of people, talented people.
Thanks, Ross. And yeah, I think everybody will have take a deep breath at the end of it all once the concept plans have been adopted and once the long-term plans have been adopted. So yeah, a lot of effort's gone into it. So thank you. Sam, is there anything you wish to add?
Morena koutou. No, nothing to add from me. Just my thanks for those of you we have as a team interacted with over the process of this pulling this document together. It's been a pleasure. And just to reiterate Ross's comments, great to work with the council team. You got good people, easy to work with, proactive, and all those good things. So from our perspective, a great working environment and relationship. So again, just my thanks for that, and just thank you again for your comments and endorsement. I'll pass that on to our team as well. So thanks very much.
So thanks for that, Sam. Any further questions, anybody? Okay, if not, we have the staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council approves, subject to final editorial changes, the release of the draft Kawhia, Aotea, Ōparau and Ōtorohanga rural concept plans for community feedback, with A, the period of community engagement submission period running concurrently with the council's long-term plan consultation process, and B, submissions heard and all feedback considered by a joint meeting of the Kawhia Community Board and Ōtorohanga District Council, supported by mana whenua representatives, for the draft Kawhia, Aotea, Ōparau concept plan, and a meeting of the Ōtorohanga Community District Council, supported by mana whenua representatives for the Ōtorohanga rural concept plan. Both meetings will be held in May 2024. Do I have a mover and seconder for those, please? We have Councillor Prendergast, second Councillor Williams. All in favour? Yes, carried. Thank you. Thanks again, Ross. Moving on to item 116, the 24-34 long-term plan confirmation workshop direction. Graham. And Nadia.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. So I thought I'd just start off just to give a bit of context to this report. So council has gone through a number of workshops as part of the preparation of our long-term plan. At the start of each of those workshops, we generally say, or we ask what's expected from council, and so and that generally is around sort of the direction. So while the appropriate staff members may be taking notes about that direction, we don't keep formal minutes from workshops, and invariably what happens further down the track is that we've got no record of that direction that was given. So the purpose of this report is to actually document that those key directives from council. I mean, there'll be other minor directions, but these were the ones that the leadership team has put together that we think are fundamental to the preparation of the document. So I'm not going to go through every one of them. I'm assuming that council's read them. If I can't answer the questions, well, some of my learned colleagues over here that were involved with the preparation will be sure to be able to answer. So, yeah.
Thanks, Graham. Councillors. Open to questions. Councillor Jeffries.
Really just the one. Graham, under 4.2 of the report, we talk about the various LTP workshops and direction by council. And I'm talking in particular about the Aotea Kāwhia seawall. I know hindsight's a great thing, but I'm just wondering whether there should be some level of district funding for the Aotea Kāwhia seawalls to recognise the importance to the district of defending the two communities from the effects of climate change and erosion. It's noted that the Ōtorohanga stop banks, for example, receive funding from regional council, so why not the seawalls? Perhaps I could suggest a 10% contribution from council be retained, if it's possible to do so.
Sorry,
I was just going to say there is 10% district funding going.
There is? Okay. Yep, sorry, well, I've missed that. My apologies. Yep.
sorry, we picked up a typo in the report that needs fixed, so we got a bit distracted on that.
Yeah. That's okay. I think this, probably just if we could check through the report again on a couple other days. I think I've got another one, but I didn't save my notes, unfortunately. Any further questions, councillors? Nothing further, so we have a staff recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council confirm the direction provided to staff as set on the report for the development of the 2024 to 2034 long-term plan. We want a second of those, please. Councillor Christensen, second Councillor Williams. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Move on to item 117. As Graham leaves and Nadia stays, the 2024 to 34 long-term plan approval of the consultation document support information. That'll be out of here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I think Nadia is going to give some context, brief context to where we're at, and then we've got a reading for the mayor.
Another script. Kia ora, your worship, councillors. So as you know, we've been going through the audit process with the long-term plan, and that involves a bit of toing and froing between Deloitte's and then also between the AOG audit, Deloitte's, and then us. So we're still going through that process, and really what they're trying to achieve is to make sure that we have absolute clarity in our documents so that it's easily understood by the reader. That unfortunately means that we can't make the adoption for this meeting, and that we propose to push everything out a week with a new date for adoption on the 4th, next Thursday, and opening for consultation on the 5th for a month, which will also push out the hearing dates.
Thanks, Nadia. As we've discussed previously, it'll push out those dates, but the engagement with the community dates still stay the same because that fits within the time frames.
Correct.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? No, thanks, Nadia. I mean, it's, yeah, it does push it out. It's just one of those deals. I don't think everybody's too frustrated by it. We kind of allowed for this to begin with, that there was that possibility, and we'd rather get it right than with the document up to now. It's looked really, really good. So awesome. We have the recommendation then that the Ōtorohanga District Council acknowledge the changing timelines due to the audit process, and B, defer discussion on item 117 to allow for the finalisation of the consultation document, and C, approve an extraordinary meeting of the Ōtorohanga District Council to be held on Thursday, 4th of April to discuss item 117. To move that, second Councillor Williams, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 118, Ōtorohanga final district interim speed management plan 2024. We're waiting on Mark or Paul. Morena, welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Ms. Wisham, thank you for, I'd like to thank the council for taking the time to consider the speed management plan. I'd like to take the report taken as read. I would like to highlight 4.2, that all the Ōtorohanga district speed limits previously held under bylaws were transferred to the National Speed Limit Register. And that speed management plans are the pathway to amend that speed limit register. Our first speed management plan has to be quite wide ranging in its consideration. And later amendments should be easier. And table 6.2 covers the proposed sites which are broken down for urban schools, rural schools, and our roads of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I suppose I'm looking up at the screen and we've got Councillor Dow's back again. Obviously this is, and I know you have a question, Paul, why it's taken so long to get this across the line. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure why either, but it's been a major point of contention in so many parts of it for a long, long time. So I'm going to actually pass over to Councillor Williams, who's going to speak to a couple of items.
Thank you, Your Worship. The point, Paul, that you've just raised, to clarify, in order to do anything in item 6.2, we have to present this plan or a plan to the national, the regional. That's the only pathway in order for us to be able to changing any signs in that area.
Yes, that's correct. So the plan has to cover off that we've considered, and there's a checklist of things you have to consider, and we can consider them irrelevant to our district if we choose to, but we have to state that we have considered.
Thank you. So given that this is the tool in order to be able to do that, what I'd like to suggest is, I know there's some contention around permanent versus variable signs. I'd like to suggest that we move on the roads of concern. I think there's a general agreement on those. And I've mentioned previously in other discussions that we've had that we've got technical evidence that one of the schools, although it's a posted speed of 50 kilometres, that the speed from the mega maps is actually 58 kilometres an hour. And so I consider that that's a matter of some urgency for that particular school. And I wonder whether we can use 6.2 to progress getting the vehicle for doing these things approved, but selecting those ones that we need to take action on now and leaving the others for a later discussion when there is more clarity around what the government's proposing in new rules. Is that clear? Has anyone got questions for me on that?
I have. So what you just said is that we have to present a speed management plan to clarify Puputia and Old Tikuri Road. Is that correct? Is that correct?
To make any changes to speed limits within the district, we have to present a plan.
But they're already changed. It's just about them being gazetted, isn't it? What did Paul just, he just read it out. Sorry.
4.2.
I'm just confused why we have to do a plan when the Simeon Brown is saying the rule no longer requires to develop a speed management plan at the moment. And that he considers it undesirable to apply public money and resources in developing speed management plans, only to have to revisit the plans when the new rule takes effect. Given this, if you have not already finalised your speed management plan, I encourage you to consider the new rule before making a final decision.
I think we've seen elsewhere in the press reporting that letters from ministers do not make it a law. And I think what we're being given a report on is that the only lawful way to make changes to speed in our area is to proceed with this plan.
And we're just to add to that, and we're obviously talking about Ōtorohanga Road as a point of discussion through the public forum the other day. So for us to change that, we have to present a plan to change the speed limit on that road. Is that correct?
So yes, it would have to be an amendment to a later plan if you do it now. I would say that we have invested a lot of time and we've already spent the money on a speed management plan. We just haven't committed to the final step.
Yeah, I know. I know. If we.
So we just have to throw it out.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
So
Robbie.
basically we just, oh, sorry, but yeah, we just have to throw it out there. Like we've been saying this meeting for meeting. We only want to change a couple of roads that we've got full consensus with. The rest of them we're not interested in. And we're not even meeting the central government. It's not just Simeon Brown's letter. There was a press release from the Beehive with David Seymour and Simeon Brown. So I don't know why we just keep doing this. It's just, yeah, we're just wasting time. So basically we just have to throw the whole plan out because we can't change the 2 roads or 3 roads that we want to change. That's how I see it. So yeah, voting no again. Cheers.
That's right. That's I appreciate your opinion, Councillor Dow. That is one opinion. Whether that's universally accepted by everybody, that is, I suppose, our other issue. So I think going forward, we want to make changes to some roads there. I think we're collectively, Paul, the way I see it is the roads in town, the schools in town, we're quite comfortable, I believe, and I'm looking for feedback. I'm just giving some direction here that they stay the same. Ōtorohanga Primary School, as was pointed out by Councillor Williams, there is a real issue with vehicles speeding past there. We'd like to see a change with that, absolutely being adopted. The roads that we talked about, Ōtorohanga Road, yes, and my suggestion, whether this is very meritable, that the 50 kilometre an hour area be extended to pretty much where the housing finishes.
Number 81.
81, is it? And then take the, then can we change a variable speed to 80 kilometres an hour out to 1.5 k's from town? I mean, 80k doesn't have to be consulted on with NZTA, 70 does. So rather than, because the issue we've had with contention, we've talked about Ōtorohanga Road for years, again, it's taken too long, is that sudden change from 100 to 50, and then that slow down speed. So if it was taken out, 80 taken out to 1.5 k's, which was mentioned in here, as a distance from the town boundary, if that's a possibility.
You mean in a staggered approach?
Yeah.
Rather.
I think,
So I think
yes,
that's the
to
original.
take 50k at 1.5 kilometres an hour, just it seems like you're in the middle of the country, 1.5 k's out. But I can see where we had the sign first time, Mark, before that was taken down, was somewhere around that end of the housing area, number 81. Referred to.
I think one of the original
plan might still be the technical assessment, the staggered approach. So we can keep that's I suppose the key for us is knowing what we're doing next as far as direction of play.
Absolutely.
We probably don't want to get too down into the detail around where the signs sit, because I think that's something that
For sure.
within
Absolutely.
the plan itself. So there's some clear direction today on schools coming out certain roads. So I think that's key for us today. It's just knowing what the next steps are.
Aspect to Councillor Williams.
No, just to restate that for clarity that it's the register is the methodology for changing signs in the district. In order to do that, we have to have this road safety, like the speed management plan, on the register. So that's the only mechanism we have. Well, yeah, and then I mean, we log it with amendments now, and then later on, I mean, and that was always the case anyway, that once it's in the register, you can, any changes then have to be done through that same process. But it's not a matter of being able to throw anything away. If we throw it away, we don't have a legal tool to do things with.
When we consulted on schools, we didn't consult on the corner of Takawa, down Harihoka, Bereslow, down to the hostel and right back up Hinawai. We consulted on by schools. This, what we've been presented, is like a block, and there's blocks that are down to 30 Ks. We don't have people, there's not enough enforcement on these roads anyway. I totally believe in keeping our children safe, but the people that speed 30 Ks, you're just going to upset everyone. Yeah, go Tony.
Oh, yeah, through you, Your Worship, I just make a comment that we maybe focus on the things that we can control. So council's role is to adopt or not adopt, or adopt an amended speed management plan. We're not in control of whether the police are going to enforce any of these, or anyone's going to enforce any of these. I just wonder whether we might stick to what we actually want in the final resolution, so that we can make the changes through this only process that we have now that you're all comfortable with. And that if that is only adopting, 4 roads or 4 roads in one school, then that is our speed management plan. And we can make amendments in the future should the politics, of the day change, or we get more direction from central government. We can come back and reconsider the other ones. So we be clear on the ones that you really want, include it in there, and send that to the director.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah,
Look,
could I just ask,
That's what we're
because
asking.
we're talking about the safety of our children, in rural areas, which I think is fantastic, our road safety team have implemented big red paintings on either side of our schools. Could we look at that in our urban area? Like our roads, can we strips in front of our schools? School ahead, slow down. I know in Cambridge, even where they've got little intersections where they slow traffic, they put big round circles on the road as a mechanism of people slowing down. Just a suggestion.
I'm sure that's not outside of our scope, is it?
Yes, we can do it.
Okay, so I'm going to make I'll actually hand back to Councillor Williams again with some recommendations here and what we've noted down. Councillor Dow, we know your feelings, so I'm really looking forward to the feedback from other councillors as well about the recommendations, possibly so we can resolve this and get something going forward.
Through you, Your Worship, can Councillor Williams please go to the table to tell us what technical support sections are in, like referencing the numbers? So if you want 2.1.9 in, 4.1, I mean, I'm assuming there's more out than in, so maybe we focus on the ins. It would be really good to get it clear based on the numbers that we have in the table, so that we're all absolutely clear what they are. Is that possible?
Paragraph 6.2 has got a summary of them. So 2.1.10, Ōtorohanga Primary.
Out.
And
Nope.
then under the roads of concerns, I support all of the roads of concern. So that's 4.1.5, 4.1.2, 4.1.1, 4.1.3, 4.1.6, although you've got some variations on 4.1.5 for Ōtowhera Road.
Councillor Johnson, you had your comments.
Yeah, you're just looking for some, council feedback on it and the, I mean, I'm in favour of amendments, bit more specific because, I just feel that what we're looking at here in its entirety is not too different to what we started off with way back. And I just think the mood of the council, the feedback we're getting from the community, it's a democratic process that applying the amendments to this is the way forward. It's something that I would support.
Can I get feedback, please, on element of comfort or discomfort with the roads that Councillor Williams has suggested?
No, my feedback.
I'm in support of the roads of concern. Primary school, maybe, yeah. I also think maybe the 50k zone could have been pushed out a bit because it's actually quite close to the school. So yes, that's probably why people are doing 54, 58.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paul, does in the technical report, it refers to a posted speed, and then the is it megamet speed? How is that because that's the one that says that they're actually doing 58k when they go past the school. Is that a calculation or is it using data that's collected with speed?
So when it's measured data. They put tubes out and it measures the time between axles. The speed that you quoted, 58 kilometres an hour, that will be the 85th percentile speed. So 15% of vehicles will be going 58 kilometres or greater. It's the speed which is deemed reasonable by 85% of the population.
So it's not necessarily in school hours then. Sorry.
No, it's not necessarily in school hours, but we want to make sure there is an element of protection during school hours. And so a variable speed sign during school hours will hopefully draw people's attention to the fact that they should be driving slower.
Awesome.
Any other feedback, councillors?
Yeah, I'm all for the variable speed signs for schools. Yeah, that's I think it's a no-brainer. It's been signalled by the government that that's where they want to go with that. Some of these permanent 30-kilometre speed zones, I think, are just ridiculous, to be perfectly honest. I mean, if you boil it down, say, to the hours that it applies to through the year for pick up and drop off, then 4.5% of the year, hours in the year is for pick up and drop off. Sure, we're protecting our kids there. So I'd see it basically. I think for clarification around the school speed limits. I think I presume we're not proposing permanent limits here, are we? This is what we.
No, what I'm
on any of the
proposing is
schools.
that we take action on one variable speed zone around one school.
Just one.
And then the rest of the schools, we would reconsider when the government comes out with what their new rule might be and whether they're going to say, we are going to give you variable speed signs for every school in your district or,
Yes,
or whatever they might
okay,
decide to do. But
that's-
right now, I think there's the 85th percentile consider that it's an adequate speed. We need to remind them that it's not during these hours. And I'd like to see that happens now, along with the roads of concern.
Okay, well, thanks for the clarification, Jess.
Thank you, councillor Prendergast.
Yes, I support councillor Williams.
Can I just have a raise of hands before I put a resolution for this? If we do have a general sense of approval for councillor Williams's recommendations. Those in support, can you raise your hands, please? The amendments that suggest councillor Williams has made.
Can we just have that restated so it's quite clear?
Are you putting this to the vote or just getting?
I'm just getting an indication.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
but people aren't clear on what it is. Is that what we need?
Yeah,
We need
because,
some clarity on what's being proposed.
yeah, I've sort of sat back and listened
Yeah,
and I'm a little bit confused with
Okay, thank you.
the whole thing, but I sort of go right back to when we first started to consider this, and I thought that we'd agreed at that time that we were going to sit back and wait for transit to decide what they were going to do nationally before we made any decisions on our own roads. But have we gone past that situation now?
Yeah, we have, because we can't make any changes to our roads going forward unless we actually adopt a speed management plan.
Yep,
So that's the first part of it. We've got to adopt a plan.
Yep.
And where obviously there's a level of uncertainty around certainly around the 30 kilometres an hour permanent speed signs around primary schools in the town. In terms of our roads are concerned, there's absolute support for dropping the speeds on those roads. So we're talking about Ōtorohanga Primary School, another one where it's been noted that traffic invariably is going well over the posted speed limit there. So, and with the objective here of actually getting this plan across the line, so we're no longer wasting any more staff's time, and we can actually implement some of these changes, that is what we're here now.
So the recommendation was approve amendments to the final draft speed management plan as identified in item 6. I've got some amendments to item 6. That's where the clarification is. So the amendments were under urban schools, where there are from A to O. I'm suggesting we only accept C, urban school, Ōtorohanga Primary, and then roads of concern, K, L, M, N, and O.
With an amendment to K,
K.
where there's a graduated speed limit from 50 to 80 kilometres, 1.5 K out of town. Is that right?
Yes.
And acknowledging that we have already got speed management around our schools. That's existing, that we've done ahead of work.
Thank you. Sorry, I know councillor Kristen's got another approach she wants to drop right now as well, but can we just?
No,
we
it'll
just get this
probably,
across the line? We can have
no.
a discussion.
It'll just mean that we'll probably have to come back because there will be a public forum in the future about, Ōtorohanga Road and Old Teakawiti Road. I just thought, do we try and put it in there while we're discussing Old Teakawiti Road? But because it's quite built up now, there's an extra 20 houses down there.
Ōtorohanga?
Ōtorohanga, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so it's not in here, so
No,
it'll be
but
a we can do it on
but
a.
Old Teakawiti Road is in this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Old Teakawiti Road still has to be in here because it's something we've already done.
Yeah, okay.
And
so we
needs to
can't
be
drop
on the
it.
register.
And then we
Yeah.
can drop it to 50 later
yeah.
on if we decide. Okay,
For an amendment.
amendment. But that's what we're doing now, isn't it? Amendment?
So do you want to propose that now, that the Old Teakawiti Road? I'm trying to work out process here, but we have just included a graduated speed on Ōtorohanga Road. Was that consulted on? Did we, yeah, so, yeah, you're making your judgment calls as elected members, as well as considering the submissions that we've had. So councillor Christensen's asking a question about the built-up nature of Ōtorohanga, well,
And
Ōtorohanga, yeah.
It goes
that
straight to 75 miles
intersection.
an hour at the bridge there, and we've got a new subdivision there, and we've got a whole lot of houses. So the question's been asked, why is that not included here to drop to 50? Because it's built up nature as well. Or can we incorporate that now? Or do we need to come back to it at a later date?
Well, I suppose at this point, we didn't consult on OT road.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
my
next
understanding
consult.
of what may feed in here that we can make other changes within the speed management plan, once it's accepted. But whether that's a significant change or not.
I think councillor
Yeah,
Christensen was talking about Ōtorohanga Road, acknowledging that Ōtorohanga hasn't been part of the consultation.
Yeah, so leaving Ōtorohanga
Ōtorohanga
out.
as it is,
And because we're already talking about Ōtorohanga Road and making it official that it's 70, maybe could we take it to 50? That's what I'm saying, rather than come back again for the same road. Just
Not
out
making the
to-
whole 70 area 50,
But
but
then,
Changing.
and then it goes to,
Mm.
yeah. Cause there's, down Old Teaquity Road, I think there's another 6 new houses just in the last year, and it's getting quite busy. And we're gonna get public consultation, someone come, public forum, the residents come talk about it, so I just thought, do we put it in while we're already talking about it?
So the.
Because I'm an affected resident, and
Say that again, Rodney, councillor Dowell, please.
I would be an affected resident from that letter from that and I know of quite a few people that are the affected residents, so it would be fair that we get the chance to.
Rodney,
hear
I'm just
before.
talking about Old Teaquity Road, not your road.
Oh,
at
you're
the
not talking
moment.
about Carling's, yeah. Okay, sweet as, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I don't see that being a problem, but whatever.
I guess, do we have a common understanding through you, worship, about where we would put if we can go down the track of doing a 50 to 70 to 100 on Old Teaquity Road, where would we put, do we have a clear idea of where we would put?
doesn't the 70 start just under the railway bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd have to change
Change
that
that as
section of
well.
Ōtorohanga Road to make
Uh,
it sensible.
I think we might have to come back to this one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Don't stress yourself, Paul.
Yep. Through your worship, I've got a second recommendation that Kaya and I have just kind of cooked up. So the first one is in line with what Councillor Williams has said, but we wonder if we don't have a second one that says delay any amendment to the other roads contained in the final draft speed management plan as presented until direction is provided by the government. Is that okay? So that we're kind of acknowledging what we're doing with the rest of it, in case anyone wonders.
And do we want to add in any red paint or? I don't know.
I think you're gonna do some.
And your worship, if I may, just one quick question. This point was raised previously, and I hope there's a common sense approach to this, is that around the Carfield School, Rosamond Terrace and Fairchild Street are both very short streets, and there doesn't seem to be any logic in having half a street at 30k and the other half at 50. So I think probably,
So we're introducing another one into the list.
Sorry.
well,
Half
it
your
was,
primary,
it was
1.1
raised as a
street.
concern
Yep.
some time back, and I just couldn't see the sense in having half of, as I said, half of Rosamond Terrace at 30 for the school and the other half at 50, when it's only about 200
Councillor
metres long.
Councillor Jeffries has already said we're leaving schools out at the stage, apart from Ōtorohanga. So,
That's fine, as long as that point's not forgotten. Thank you.
okay.
Can I say one more?
Councillor's happy that we've got to a point where we can have a resolution.
Excuse me, I'm not happy with the Waitomo Valley Road. I've talked to lots of residents on there, and they're not wanting it to be 80k. And our neighbours, Waitomo, they're a decent council. They're not changing any speed limits, so yeah. So we don't want to have ours at 80k, and then it's 100k, and then it goes to transit. Have got 80k on state highways, but so now, and the residents of Waitomo Valley that I've talked to, they're quite happy with the speed limit they've got. So I know there's an intersection upgrade probably required. That's off
Rodney,
Whakakotani's road, but yeah. Anyway,
Rodney,
so
in the last,
I'm not happy with those, yeah.
yeah, I'll just point out in the last month, the one lane bridge, which is in our boundary, has probably had 5 accidents. They're not locals. It's more, I think, to help with the tourists that use that road. So, yeah, I'm just saying, I'll support it.
That was
Yeah, I just don't think-
speaking to a council member from Waitonga, and they're going to match what we match. It's not that they're not doing it. They're anticipating that we're going to do 80 and they were going to match it as well.
No, not the ones I've talked to, so.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to put a resolution forth. Now, where are we? Which part is it? So the Ōtorohanga District Council. Do you want to read this or not read it? I'm not sure.
Well, I'm reading over Kaya's shoulder, so yeah, that the Ōtorohanga District Council approve amendments to the final draft speed management plan amended to the following roads. Section 2.1.10, Ōtorohanga Primary, section 4.1.5, Ōtowhero Road, extending the speed limit of 80 km north of Kakamutu Street for 1.5 kilometres. Section 4.1.2, section 4.1.1, section 4.1.3, section 4.1.6.
Yes, sorry, Paul.
My understanding was Ōtorohanga Road was 50 km was be extended with 800 meters and then 80 kilometers to
1.5.
1.25, but it's about where the flowers are sold.
They're all. I'll probably go to the top of the hill.
Yeah, but I think that 50 is actually extended further to number 81, which is on the corner.
Okay, if the 50 can be extended to number 81, which is where that long truck parks each time, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's way past the end of the footpath, way past the end of the footpath. And then past the flowers, I was thinking, but this is something that we don't have to worry about now, but somewhere, I was thinking about the top of the hill where you come down to the flowers. Because that's ready to start getting double driveways and blind driveways as well. So, thank you.
So if we got this right then, section 4.1.5, Ōtowhero Road, extend a speed limit of 50 kilometres an hour for 800 metres, then 80 kilometres an hour north of Kakamutu Street to 81 Ōtowhero Road? No. Yeah.
The 50 Ks is to number 81, and then it's the progressive.
That's why we're reading them out.
And the 80 kilometre an hour sign is approximately 5 kilometres.
Current one, from the current 1.5 k from the current 50 k sign.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be, but yeah.
You wouldn't put that. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's 800 metres is anything for this, but I'm a bit certain. So probably just that, can we say at the end of the house? Yeah, 81, yeah. That's what
We have another go?
Yeah.
Extend the speed limit. Whakarongo, listen.
Focus, team, focus.
Extend the speed limit of 50 kilometres an hour for 800 metres north of Kakamutu Street to 81 Ōtowhero Road, then 80 kilometres an hour to 1.5 kilometres from the current 50 kilometres an hour sign. Is that right? Oh, cool.
And then the rest of the recommendations?
Oh, I'm not reading them all out again. Oh, B and C. So B is delay any amendment to the other roads contained in the final interim draft or draft interim speed management plan as presented until direction is provided by the government, and adopt the final draft interim speed management plan and proceed with submission for certification from the Director of Land Transport. Do we say with amendments or no? Or is that inherent in what's above? Yeah, we've got amendments in there, so we're clear. Yeah.
Won't repeat that again. I'd like to move that. Seconded. So Williams, all in favour? Oh, sorry, none of that was recorded. I moved it. That was, no, I didn't have my mic on. That was seconded by councillor Williams. All in favour? Against?
Yep, I'm against.
Thank you. Carried.
I'm against.
Paul and team, thank you for all the work that's gone into this. We've got somewhere. Yeah. Do you want your movement against recorded, councillor Dow?
Yes, please, of course. Yep, don't
Okay,
agree with the whole
thank
thing.
you. Thanks, team. Moving on to yeah, 119 financial report for month ending 29th of February 24. Brendan, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, for the first time in my time here, I get to present a financial report to the 29th of February. Because the last time that happened, we weren't doing monthly reports or anything quarterly, so I've never done one to the 29th of February before. And I'll take it as read, I guess. Yeah, just we're in a good financial position again still. We do have, just on the balance sheet, we've got the 9 million of debt. That's all coming due middle of next month. We currently have about $5 to $6 million sitting in the bank. So we'll probably be able to repay a significant amount of that 9 mil. We still obviously got some expenditure for the rest of the year, so have to probably take some loans out to fund us through to get through that as well. So just to renew the existing ones. So I think we'll end the year in a pretty good financial position as well.
That's a year.
So yeah, any questions?
Thanks, Brendan.
Very hard. Yeah.
Councillor Jeffries.
Yeah, just one, thanks, Your Worship. Brendan, on
Can't hear it, so.
sorry, can you hear me now? Yep. On the combined cost of service statement, the under expenditures in water supply and community services, can you just comment on those for us? Thanks. Yep. So a part of that is to do with, again, back to staffing. So we've obviously budgeted for, as you know, we've had some changes in the water team. Kevin's left now, so there's some savings made there. We've also had some staff off with ACC, so there's been money coming back into offset the salaries that we've paid for that. So there's a few issues like that. Well, not issues, I guess. Some savings there. Again, if it's just to do with maintenance, particularly in the water supply, if we don't need to spend the money on maintenance, we won't necessarily spend it. More reactive than proactive at this point. In terms of the community services, again, a lot of that's probably in the maintenance area for parks, reserves, that sort of stuff. We need to do replace assets. Yeah, that's the bulk of it. So there's no suggestion that between now and the 30th of June that we're going to be bringing those up to the budgeted amounts. It's just a matter of what's needed in the meantime. Yes, I mean, obviously anything could break at any time and you may need to spend that money, but yeah, at this point, I'm not aware of anything Mark hasn't brought anything like this.
Thank you, councillor Johnson.
I brought this up last time, but just to remind me again, on the balance sheet
Yes.
of the non-current liabilities, the borrowings, all those numbers being the same across there, where shouldn't we have 5 million coming in somewhere? That's so our borrowings have gone up to 5 million. So where's it? Shouldn't that be on the other side of the balance sheet somewhere?
Yeah, so I guess the cash and cash equivalents you'll see is up by about 3 million from what it was at the end of last year. So that's part of it, and the rest of it was spent. So that 5 million, a lot of that was
the 4 million that was there at the end of last year was the loan we took out to give to NKC, so that was money in and out. The other 5 million has been for cash flow purposes to pay for CapEx, OpEx, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's been spent. You'll see that obviously our property plant equipment's up. So that is also reflecting that. It's up to about 4 million, 5 million on last year. So a lot of that 5 million that we borrowed was probably spent on that 5 million CapEx that we've done.
Yep, I can, so it's broken, the 5 million is broken down in other areas.
Yeah.
But we can't actually see it there.
Not specifically, no.
And is that just the way it is, that all those numbers are exactly the same across there, except for the 4 and 5, is that?
Yeah, so the extra, the fact that it's not nice round numbers, the 447613, that relates to the suspensory loan that we've had since 2004, 2005, I think, for the older person's housing. So that loan's due to be repaid in 2 years' time, I think, off the top of my head. It's a suspensory loan, so the way that works is if we still own the properties at the time the loan comes due, then Housing New Zealand, as it was at the time, would write it off, so we don't have to repay the loan. It's a 0% interest loan as well, so we've never paid any interest on it. So, yeah, so that will disappear in a couple of years' time.
When you say it'll disappear, it'll just disappear off the books.
Pretty much, it'll be a write-off. So we'll write off the liability, sorry, but then we'll probably have to write off some equity as well to offset it. There's a proper way to treat it. So I'm not sure off the top of my head. I will find out what time we have to do.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Awesome, thanks.
Also, sorry, Max,
sorry,
one more, just, this, I mean, it's just a good work. I think that, we're in times of rising costs, and they are like our operating expenditure on the pages, well, actuals is well below budget.
Yeah, yeah.
So, that's good work, is it? Yeah.
I mean, the other expenses might be good work. I guess the employee benefit expenses comes back to the same issue we've talked about every month, and that, those vacancies and trying to get people to fill some of those vacancies that we budgeted for does cause some issues. And obviously gives us savings, but potentially we might be spending more on consultants. So someone else work might not be getting done, I guess. Yeah. So, but the other expenses side of things is probably, good work, good savings by staff, but then there's also some other things like the town concept plans you've just went through, adopted the drafts of. There's some costs of those that possibly haven't come through yet.
Thank you, Brendan. So we have staff recommendation here that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the report titled Financial Report for the month ending 29th of February 2024 from Brendan Callahan. Move Councillor Jeffrey, second Councillor Johnson, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 120, statement of intent of CoLab. Thanks, Brendan. Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. So this is just for councillors' information. So we're a shareholder in CoLab. So attached is their draft statement of intent and their 6-monthly report to the end of December. I've highlighted some of the key directions in their statement of intent and also just some of the highlights of their the last 6 months. So I'll take it as read and just any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Unfortunately, I deleted all my little notes beside the report. But in terms of the change, like up until now, there's been annual subscription, which they're cutting right back, and there's $1 million less revenue coming in. But as a consequence, this is my take on. So as a consequence of what is done well, we'll obviously be paying for our share of it. Is that correct? And if so, will our contribution to CoLab be more than what it currently is?
trying to, so
Percent.
yeah, I am. So in terms of the work Waikato on the Waikato, yeah. So we have received approval from the Department of Internal Affairs to use the previously allocated from the Labor government transition funding for Three Waters reform to the local water, well, Waikato Water done well. So we have about $225,000 in that account, and we will be using that instead of ratepayer money to contribute our share, which at the moment has been really minimal because the formula that they're using for the Waikato Water done well is based on the population calculation. And so I think so far our contribution has been about $3,000 or something. So it's not. We might end up. We've just engaged with the Bay of Plenty councils. We've just engaged 2 staff to continue to do the work for us, because none of us have the time to do all the analysis. And so the contribution towards that might be about $20,000 a council, but in the larger scheme of things, it's worth it for the expertise we get.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Graham, I was just really interested in this, I don't know how you pronounce it, it is LIDAR or LIDAR or LIDAR. Yeah, that sounds like a really powerful tool. Are we involved in that, are we, I guess?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so do you have any indication at the stage on how we would best use that? Is it one of those systems that actually can, when it's sort of taking aerial shots, can it actually see through forests and actually follow the contour of the land and all that sort of stuff? Or is it, how sophisticated is that tool?
I'm gonna pass that question over to somebody that possibly knows more than me. Tony, are you?
Is there anybody in the room?
Yeah, no, I just find those sorts of things fascinating. I'm just interested in a bit more about it, that's all.
Yeah, kia ora, councillor. Sorry, that mic's not on. My understanding is LIDAR is can go through cloud. My understanding is it can go through vegetation and it maps the contours. I'm not a GIS expert, but at the regional council had a little bit of exposure to it, so that's my understanding of how it works.
Sorry, yes, thank you for that information. Yeah, I'm very interested to see it once it's in action, what it can do and the benefits to us. Thank you.
Just through your worship, I had extensive experience with it at Westland District Council, where we used it to map our town stormwater systems and where we were woefully short in terms of capacity and size versus where we were, fine. And the entire stormwater infrastructure plan was put in place based on that LIDAR modelling, because it can just give you such detailed information. So it's very powerful tool.
Thanks, Tony. Councillor Prendergast.
Through you, Your Worship, just to back up what Tony said, the lines companies and all those companies use it extensively, and it's well recognised as a very, very useful tool.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? If not, we have the report recommendation in front of us. That the Ōtorohanga District Council A receives a report titled CoLab Draft Statement of Intent 24-25. B receives the draft CoLab Statement of Intent for 24-25 and endorses direction set therein, subject to following feedback. And C receives the CoLab half-year report for the period ending 31st December 2023. I'll move that. Second, Councillor Tamaki. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Graham. Moving on to your next item, item 121, Waikato Regional. Who's they?
The airport company.
Are they?
Yes. So we'll skip that.
So we'll skip that item. Retract everything I just said. And I'll move on to item 122, Building Activity Annual Update. Tony.
Kia ora, you'll see that I'm not Phil. He's at a workshop, regional workshop, so he had a bit of a clash. So I'm presenting on his behalf. We're actually more appropriately answering any questions of a non-technical nature that I may be able to help with. So I'll take the report as read, if I may. There is one update verbally that I wanted to provide, though it's not in the report. So last week, which is why it's not in the report, so we kind of put it on. We had a briefing from Consentium. If you haven't heard of Consentium, they are the building consenting arm of Kāinga Ora. So they are set up as a national building consent authority. They have all the powers that all the councils have to sign off building consents, issue building consents, inspect, provide certification. They only do Kāinga Ora's builds. They don't outsource or consult to any other entities. So the reason they approached us is that they are now issuing some building consents in Ōtorohanga. They have around 33 houses in town, which are going through a refit program. And the pipeline, they call it the pipeline, is around about 3 to 4 projects per year. The internal refits are around healthy homes, so double glazing, insulation, that kind of thing. They do need building consent. So what happens is they issue their own building consents. They have different reporting structures, so it's all managed through different reports, different CEs, so there's no conflict of interest there. And then they advise us, give us the documentation, we put it onto our files. So it's the first one I think that we've had in this district. They do it up and down the country, and they have said that in terms of redevelopments and new builds, there's nothing at the moment in the pipeline. So I just wanted to give you that verbal update. I thought you might be interested in that. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tony. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jeffries, a couple of programs.
Am I that obvious, your worship? Yeah, no, Tony, thanks for that. Are they subject to the same audit procedures as us?
Yes, they are. So IAN's also audit them as well.
Okay. And just 2.3 of the report, there's no suggestion that we won't be compliant come the 1 March, that we will remain as an accredited provider, is it?
So I checked in with our, we've got a consultant on board helping us navigate through this. So we have to submit our fixes for the non-compliances by the end of this week. And then IENS has until the 30th of April to come back to us. So we're on track with that. And we don't expect IENS to come back with any additional work we have to do. We'll report back with that.
A good question, councillor. Yeah, hopefully that is all the case, Tony, going forward. Any further questions here, councillor Williams, then Christensen?
Thank you. Just further to that, Tony, the fixes, are they embedded in our systems now, and so going forward they won't come undone with changes of staff or procedure? Or
so we have our own quality control manual, and that's our go-to for how we conduct, I suppose, building consent work. What IANS has identified is that some of the procedures that we have had in place haven't been, I guess, best practice, or there's continuous improvement. So of those 35, some of them are immediate fixes where we can like train some of our staff, for example, straight away and then tick that off as a fix. It's happened, it's been completed. Some of the others are work-ons, and they might take some time. The example that we've got, or comes to my mind, is us transitioning to an online building platform, Alpha One or something similar to that. So that's a piece of work that will take a bit of time to embed. So it's a mix of ones that we can tick off straight away as having been done, and some, and I can't tell you what those are at the moment, but some that will be work-ons. And for our next audit in August, there still may be some outstanding work-ons that we haven't yet completed, but the bulk of them are hoping to be head fixed by then.
My question was just around the same thing, the audit. I was just wondering how this audit compares to our previous ones.
I don't have that information, so I can find out. Unless anyone else can share any light on that.
Yeah, through your worship. So you may recall that for those councillors who were here when I arrived, we had a bit of an adverse audit at that time. And so we had several non-compliances or non-conformances then that we spent a bit of time tidying up. IANS came back within a year to check. They instead of the 2-year window, they closed it and said, we'll come back in a year. And that audit passed with flying colours. And so that's sort of the history. I guess talking to couple of councils near us, and not always small councils either, who have experienced, reached out to a couple of chief executives and who have experienced, a similar type of audit result and have had to work through quite a lot of systems and process fixes. So there's the bars being lifted higher. We've got to keep pace of that. We're putting in place things to enable us to do that, as well as the immediate fixes, some of them which are long term. But it seems that it's can be a bit of a roller coaster ride in that respect. Yeah.
That's why I asked, because if my memory was right, I thought we flew through the last one and then this, and I was like, oh, wow.
Mr. Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. Tony, just a question piqued my interest here about there's 2.5, there's 197 known swimming pools in that Ōtorohanga district. So I presume there must be some that are unknown then.
We only know what we know.
Yeah, exactly. But do we have mechanisms in place to identify that there are more that aren't known, and who does our inspections and things like that? I was just quite because
You have a confession to
problem
make,
in other
Mr. Hughes.
districts, I understand.
It's a good question. So it is genuine. We only know what we know. And how we find out about the other ones is usually through someone alerting us to it, or through our building inspectors, because they do this work, observing something as they're driving past. But it's probably fair to say there's a number of small pop-up ones that you can buy and just inflate, put some water in. There's probably a heap of those around that we don't know about. We don't have the resources to proactively go door knocking. We don't have the LiDAR survey at the moment to show where they all are. But there is some spatial analysis we could use, but we don't have a resource to do that. So at the moment, it's really by observation or someone letting us know.
So we outsource our inspections for swimming pools?
No, our building inspectors do all that. It's part of their role to do that.
Your Worship, sorry to interrupt. Can I just, that's an interesting point. So with this LiDAR technology, does that mean that we will no longer need to have aerial photographs taken of the district? Or is that still going to be a requirement in some ways?
So my understanding of the spatial capability is there's different tools for different uses. So satellite and aerial provide exactly what we're talking about: swimming pools, vegetation cover, things like that. LiDAR gives ground contour. So it's quite a different tool. So I think there's still going to be a need for aerial photography and satellites is cheaper, is my understanding.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? In light of no further questions, we have the recommendation that the Ōtorohanga District Council receive the Building Control Activity Annual Report. It says from Phil, but we'll take it from Tony. I'd like to move that. Seconded Councillor Hughes, all in favour? Against, carried. Thanks, Tony. Robbie's preempted my next statement. Welcome, Robbie. Item 123, capital projects report for the month ending 29th of February. And Mark.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kia ora, councillors. This report provides an update on completion of the 2022-2023 capital projects and the progress of capital projects for the period ending 29th of February. I'll take the report as read, and before I hand over questions, will add that despite some challenges detailed further in the report, the capital delivery program is progressing and tracking on schedule.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Councillor Williams.
Through your worship, just an item of interest really, Robert, there was this one project where we're going to have to do deep excavation and a piece that couldn't, and so there's a discussion on relining rather than putting a new pipe in. Does that pose, like, is that project would we have been applying our build bigger to cope with climate change? Does that provide, presume it's not significant, but is there any sort of a little bottleneck there where we can't build bigger, we're just going to build smoother and hope that it carries on through the pipe?
Yeah, listen, we're talking about the rail crossing, I guess, as part of the wastewater project. Yeah, the feedback from Kiwi Rail and the conditions they provided made it prohibitive to do the design that we put forward. So the alternative to reline, while not upsizing the pipe, and you are correct, isn't a longer term solution, but does give us a life in the existing pipe. So I guess there does need to be, given that decision from Kiwi Rail, some longer term thinking down the line to that
Oh.
network.
It's presumably that's part of our long-term planning and budgeting then, so.
Yes. But the lining does provide a long-term solution for that existing pipe.
Any further questions, councillors? Thank you.
Sorry, on that same thing, I mean, yeah, there's you mentioned there's another 450K, additional 450K to the project. But I like to see at the bottom, it's 40% complete and 40% budget utilised, so will there be a budget blowout with that? By 450K by the time it's finished?
No, with excuse me, the change at that particular section has forced us to look at an alternative solution for Kiwi Rail as well. It's I guess coincidental that solution provides a relaxation on the budget, so we'll I guess compensate for the overrun on the other separable portion, as the relining's a lot cheaper than what we had put forward to Kiwi Rail.
No, thanks, Robbie. I mean, I got this presentation the other day of risk insurance, and it just seems like, and I can say you can't, but Kiwi Rail seems to be not just risk averse, but progress averse. So you don't have to pass a comment.
Thank you.
But they do seem to be rather problematic. This is not the first time, and I'm sure we're not the only council that runs up against barriers placed by Kiwi Rail. So thank you. No further questions. We have resolution that the Ōtorohanga District Council received a report titled Capital Projects Report for the month ending 29th February 2024 from Robbie Whiteman. We've moved on a seconder, moved Councillor Preston, second Councillor Jeffries, all in favour? Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, guys. May as well. It's not lunchtime, councillors, so we'll go around the table. Councillor Johnson, what have you been up to? Mic on, please, councillor. All can know what you're up to.
Sorry, I did say that it's good to have some other councillors go first so that they can remind me of things that I went to that I forgot as I was reading my list. But anyway, I've got three things here, which is it was a pleasure to go to the Aotearoa Hawkeye with Councillor Prendergast and Yvonne Meter and Cassidy in support. That was a really nice day out, and made some good connections there, so that was good. Also attended the water scheme meeting and went to attended the CE performance review. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, your worship. Yes, on the 8th of the 3rd, I attended the Zone 2 at Karapiro, which was certainly well worthwhile. The 10th, I attended the Polkai, as councillor Johnson has just alluded to. The 12th was the North King Country Development Trust monthly meeting and their AGM. On the 19th, the Rural Water Schemes Information Meeting, which was, I felt, very good and helped clarify quite a few bits and pieces. And the 20th was the risk and assurance. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Tamaki.
Kia ora, Paukai, Tuia Wānanga workshops, Mokopapa Symposium, catch up on MFM talking about some of the stuff that Mayor Robinson alluded to. Joint management agreement, hui wa tēnei nui, and putting some wheels on mana whenua concepts coming out of the Becca document that we've been doing. So around Tiakina Kauri out at the Kauri Lodge and the high water space for outreach and āwhina. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor Willison.
Kia ora. Still the same, councillor Wilson, doing nothing. Just update on the hostel. End of April, there'll be a message put out to the community that there'll be a recognition assembly, or for want of a better word, in May for the hostel, for all the families that have attended their old staff, etc. At the Makati Pokai, thank you to the councillors and your worship for attending our Pokai, and also help with facilitating the National Coastal Restoration Symposium held at Makati Marae, which I believe Kip had a lot to do with as well. So, kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Zone 2, Pukai, Rural Water, the councillor, the chief executive, performance review, seawall, and yesterday with the joint committee for Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management. A couple of things added there. There's a North Island severe weather event after action review, and there's a few actions that have come out of that. And one of the recommendations was an ongoing awareness and training in emergency management for governance in the Waikato region. Mayors and elected members, including training in the role of elected members during an emergency, declarations and practice and media management. There is a national training 3 days coming up. It was going to be June, July. It's been shifted out to November, I think. So there'll be more information come prior to that for us to get involved, even if we're only watching how it unfolds. And another thing that's been trying to be moved along for a while now is iwi involvement with emergency management, and not all groups have involved yet, and so the KEG have asked us to approve moving ahead with it anyway, and that as others have the resource or that they can join in, that's not going to be excluding them. So that's me. Thank you.
Me. Last Friday, the community board had a picnic in the park down at the Domain with food trucks and live music, which was probably maybe 100 people, which is pretty cool. Lots of kids running around playing. The Wednesday last week, the development board has once a month a business after 5, and it goes to a different business each month. And last week it was at Hazelmaid, and I suggest if you've never been in there, you need to go and see what Hazel does. I think Hazel said to me, people just see me walking down the street and think, oh, who's that weird chick with all the tattoos? She has probably, not probably, it's an amazing business that sends out her clothing, her original unique clothing, all over the world. She's got a map in there with pin drops where it goes. She releases a new product every week. She yeah, you've just got to go in there. She's amazing. I've always thought Hazel's amazing, but I just, yeah. So it's every month the development board does that. So if you're keen to come along to the next one, I just flick Teresa a message. I went to zone 2, which was really cool. I got a lot out of that. And community board meeting. Yeah, and that's it. I was probably just want to mention, I don't know if it's us to do comms around, but parking in town, people, I'm not sure if everyone realizes that public are going to lose the fire station parking. And I know that council has had conversations with the fire station. They're putting a fence up, and I'm just wondering if we need to be putting some comms up too. I'm not sure who they've talked to, but I know they have. Yeah, because that'll be happening soon.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Bishop. Yeah, 4th of March, I attended a community board meeting here. Our 12th workshop and extraordinary council meeting in the afternoon, and then risk and assurance on the 20th. That's what we've been up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, 6th of March, went to the Hamilton Airport Shareholders Day. Oh, is there any reason why that's not on the agenda? It's on the agenda, but we're not taking it today. Is that right?
1 o'clock.
Oh, 1 o'clock, sorry. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that was really interesting. And one thing that I didn't appreciate was that they've actually got a solar farm there now, and they're looking to produce their own energy supply for the airport. So it's quite amazing. 7th of March was a community board meeting at Kāwhia. We had the 12th of March elected members workshop here, and then the 13th of March we had the Pokai at Makatu Marae, which was a beautiful day out there. And I just wanted to say thank you to the staff who attended the information tent. I understand there was quite a bit of interest in that, and I know that the Jaffas all got swamped on by the kids, and there was quite a lot of other stuff that went out. So well done to that team. And just to say that I've received a lot of favourable comments about the fact that council was actually there that day. So there was some kudos and brownies there. 19th of March, we had that meeting with the Rural Water Supply Committees, and the 20th of March, the Risk and Assurance meeting, followed by the Kāwhia and ANZ Seawalls meeting with the Community Board. On the 20th of March, I attended the Coastal Restoration Trust conference dinner, and that was at the Makatu Marae Dining Hall, and they made some presentations that night as well. And on the following night, I facilitated a panel discussion in the community centre, which pretty much was based around vehicles on beaches. And as you can imagine, there was quite a bit of spirited conversation around that. They did try to make the point, and I did as well, that it was actually a national issue and not just one confined to Kāwhia. But there is an element of in Kāwhia which unfortunately seems to have taken the view that whatever's been proposed in terms of restricting vehicle access to Ocean Beach is actually going to take place. And we're trying to break that down and saying there's so much to be done before we even come out for public consultation on that. So if you hear any feedback, if you could just correct them on that, because I've been trying to fight fires a bit on that one. And I know that John Forbes, chairman of Te Taio, and also who's on the Tainui Kāwhia Corporation board, has been receiving a number of, in some cases, rather hostile calls, which is unfortunate. But overall, it was a very successful national conference. It put Kāwhia on the map, and I just want to congratulate the conference organisers, and particularly the locals who were involved, and especially Makatu Marae for hosting. After the dinner on the on the 20th, I did actually happen to walk past the meeting house, and it was chock-a-block with mattresses and pillows, and there were already people trying to get to sleep. And I said, good luck to you, I'm going home. But for many of the attendees at that conference, it was their first time in Kāwhia, and there was just so much positive feedback received about the hospitality that was extended, and the number of field trips that were organised in Kāwhia. Ōtorohanga had them on the waka, talking to them about the waka and what they do there. They went to the nursery, and on the following day they were out at Aotea. They did the coastal walk. Ross and Kelly Dockery talked about mussel farm spats down there. Yeah, and there was and they went out to Hawaii Iti, which is the garden there that grows a particular type of root vegetable, which I understand is unique. So that was a big deal for them as well. So all in all, it was a very successful conference, and I just wanted to record the congratulations to all involved in organising that. For many of those attendees, it was their first time in Kāwhia, but they tell me that they may come back in holiday mode. So who knows? It was a good PR exercise too, in that respect. Yeah. So kia ora.
Awesome. Thanks, Councillor. That was a success. Okay, moving on to the resolution register. Tanya.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Pretty simple. We're recommending all of the resolutions be removed from the register.
Any questions as to why not or why? I'm just quite a statement. Do we have a mover and a seconder that all the items be removed from the resolution register? Councillor Jeffries, Councillor Prendergast, all in favour? Against? Carried. Awesome. Sorry. I'd like to move that we go into public excluded. Seconded Councillor Prendergast. And we'll move on to item.
Just wait for Day to let us know that
One,
Lawrence, somebody hasn't got us signed in because Lawrence has had called. They're looking for us.
I ring here.
Oh,
Because I
yeah.
was.
we reckon. Ben to talk to us about the Waikato Regional Airport. Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you very much. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So as Matt said, I'm Scott Kendall, GM Finance. Colleague here, Ben Langley, is the GM Airport Operations, and your face of the business. Got apologies to Mark Morgan. Mark's just had knee surgery, so he's not able to join us today. But he's back on deck remotely. So yes, his apologies. As is Barry Harris, who'd like to join you as well. So it's great to be here. First time I've been here in 6 years. So I know we've joined on Zoom a couple of times, but yeah, nice to get down and see sort of out in the community and see our other shareholders. So we've got a presentation that's just going on screen. I just quickly flick to the next agenda slide. Yeah, so it's a bit of a hybrid. It's a bit of a backward looking, what we've done, what we're currently doing, and sort of where we see ourselves going as well. So yeah, we're a little bit flexible for timing. So note we've got a half-hour time slot. We can flex that if you need us to speed up or slow down. Carry on. I think let's go to the next slide. Just a bit of an overview to appreciate some of you who want to meet since the last round of elections potentially. But it was corporatized out of Ministry of Transport into local government in 1989 and kind of belonged to in state around sort of the mid-2000s. A pretty significant capital project. The runway was lengthened third time, and the terminal was extended with a view that it would be a long-term international airport. At the time, sort of 70 million of debt was borrowed to do that. Unfortunately, all the works have been with the GFC. Then Freedom Air, which was the incumbent international airline, restructured into it's got up and absorbed by Air New Zealand, and then we saw the likes of Emirates and that competing with Tasman out of Auckland, which meant that Air New Zealand is sold out major centres. And yeah, and surprising fuel prices as well, and that only continue. So shareholders have bought on the jet funds really to resolve the servicing issues that we had. And the airport continued to lose money right from 2013 when Virgin entered a skeleton international service. And then there was a change in board at that point and a change in strategy. It was really focused on the regional airport. So loss making continued for another few years, but certainly improving. It was around 2018 that board had presented with a number of opportunities about the property investment side of it. So Titanium Park had been a joint venture that failed. But it was at that point domestic tourism approved it. The airport had actually returned to a decade, 2018. Really the strategy since then that's been continued diversifying. We absorbed some shocks. We didn't really look at a strategy in 2018 before the pandemic. We foresaw a risk that Air New Zealand could play with the schedule and reduce census, which is the likewise to our business for the airport. So we hadn't planned for a recession, but a pandemic, but we were well positioned to take that. But diversifying the business, we were able to be an MIQ hotel facility, we acquired the hotel quite recently. Didn't seem like a great investment as COVID was approaching, international borders and stuff, but as MIQ turned around, it's the best thing we've done in a long time. And actually through that, the aeronautical business actually did quite well. It had a lot of property holdings, so engineering facilities and the like that we're able to take over as well. So that got us to 2023, which is sort of the year we're reporting on and into 24. Helpful car park is ultimately our earnings this year, but underlying we're growing revenue. Fortunately, we're growing all the costs, but we are battling like huge challenge about inflation and reinvestment in that. All parts of the business are growing. They're not, some of them haven't gone quite as well as we'd like, but Ōtorohanga are growing, we still see lots of growth. And I know that's been topical for some of the other councils, is understanding the people probably what that means and how we connect here. Talking about urban precinct, development, that, in Southampton region, I appreciate that we're hearing the reason standing at the road as well. And that's very challenging for us to be in a position to not only be sure that we won't come to into more funds, but we can actually provide some meaningful return at a commercial level, return back to our shareholders without compromising the business. That's what the challenge for at the moment. On paper, it looks great. That will talk to you some of the challenges coming in. It's much like yourself, construction, but we're facing a lot of the same challenges. To be sort of too premature in paying out capital or dividends now, which we're not going to be paying some money to. I think that's the journey, kind of the current 10-year strategy, and a little bit of history to frame some conversation. So I'll just look to the next slide. Just to confirm our 10-year strategy of what it is, we are an airport first and foremost. We had to connect Waikato to New Zealand. We don't talk about the world, so our official position is we respond to the international inquiry. The airport, after it lost international services, pursued for a very long time, put a lot of time, effort, and money into marketing an international destination. That wasn't really that successful. Have had international services. So, and we'll talk about inquiry that's burbling away at the moment, but we respond really positively to inquiry. We'd love to be an international airport, but going out and chasing it just hasn't been great strategic line. It's been attractive. Being financially self-sustaining first and foremost, and generating returns. So that's how we're focused at the moment. We get a great revenue business. And to protect the core, so protecting the asset plan, and future plan, some of it is you can actually use to develop the airport, and we've developed that into titanium park. Other parts are really important to hang on to. What it happens, so we'll measure about developing that, so we don't have a box or a plan. Yeah, and really balance selling land. I know it's been controversial for some. It's been really important for us to sell land, that capital, that don't pay down debt, or actually reinvest into long-term assets. And that can be like, for example, hotel, really good investment, continues to the region generally suffers from commercial accommodation, and we've had some other wins as well, just for titanium park, just warehousing and that our location, State Highway 3, State Highway 1, State Highway 2 land for the opportunities. Just go to the next slide. So yeah, 2023 was quite a big year. It actually started with the terminal opening. Some of you I know were there, that might have been right into 2022, but the new look and feel sort of is still there with the terminal. We obviously rebranded, a little bit of a stale sort of brand, so a little bit more bright blue in the face, a bit vibrant. At the same time, a good chance to engage with the community brand that sort of represents King backgrounds like ours. Master plan, that was really just a reset of what land holdings we had and how future-proof we are, just to make sure that we're not going down a path that doesn't reflect where aviation is going. And then a lot of work's gone into our infrastructure as well, particularly around a solar farm development, being the first airport in New Zealand to have a solar farm that's owned and operated itself. But other work we've done as well, just our own roading, internal roading, and our Three Waters infrastructure as well. We've made some key strategic acquisitions here in nautical facilities. So one of them was a former facility held by Air New Zealand. It was dormant after they restructured their domestic network. We had a chance to secure that, which we did. That meant another engineering business was able to move in there and grow their operation, and we were able to see international sized jets coming in for maintenance. No freight or passengers yet, but first step first, having the capability to service them and do some quite heavy maintenance on them was a real win for us. And a good chance to tell the story of a property business and an airport business meshing together for a mutual outcome. And I think it's probably enough on that slide. Probably see here, just conscious that economic impact, discretionary income, what that's meant for travel. As I said, the business has grown, but it's probably seen a bite on discretionary travel that probably hasn't seen the growth we would have liked. I'm just going to pass on to Ben now, just to give you an overview, more detail around the business.
Kia ora koutou, thank you for having us today and to have a chat. So
I'll just touch briefly on our passenger performance, and it's relatively stable at the moment. We've been unfortunately impacted by the Pratt & Whitney engine issues of the A320 fleet that have ultimately led to Air New Zealand redistributing some of their ADR services to their main trunk lines, and that has had a small impact on our schedule. So our passenger numbers, while we typically would expect to see growth sort of year in, year out, have been relatively stable over the last 12 months, and various sort of constraints that against our budget that we had to sort of configure over that period. Going forward, though, that is a finite problem for them, so we don't expect that to last long term. But there is still some work to do with Air New Zealand on those engines. So we'll just sort of watching brief on that, and certainly stay engaged with Air New Zealand on how we sort of mitigate any constraints to our schedule around that. On to the next one. Our sustainability ventures have been very successful over the last couple of years, and there's been a lot of hard work sort of getting to the point that we're at now. In particular, we joined the Airport Council International Airport Carbon Accreditation Program, the ACA program. It's essentially an airport-centric sustainability measure, and through that process of been mapping our carbon emissions, and then been through a process of reducing and sort of advancing in that area. We've had a 20% verified reduction in our carbon in 2022, which we're very proud of, and recently built a solar farm, which is the first airport in the country to successfully complete, which now powers all of our terminal needs, plus a bit of left over for the grid. So there's an economic return for us on that. And we're entering a really interesting time. So the future for us in sustainability really is working with our airline partners and looking at ways to reduce the carbon footprint that they produce. And there's some technology challenges that we'll need to work through with them. You may be aware of the Air New Zealand commercial demonstrator service. They're looking to electrify an aircraft service and put that through its paces in the next couple of years. We've been through a selection process for that, and we're shortlisted for a route to Auckland that they've been weighing up against a route to Blenheim. And so we've made some real gains in that area, and we look forward to hopefully being a part of that down the track. And there's going to be further iterations of that. So there's some interesting challenges to the airport around infrastructure that may include electric or hydrogen powered aircraft for the wider aviation community around sustainable aviation fuel, and how that may be generated either through biomass or synthetically. These are wider challenges for all of New Zealand's transport and some networks, but specifically being addressed by aviation through some of the working groups there. So next slide. Just finally, an update on our airport. This is a snap of our master plan. So this master plan takes us through to 2052, and really just describes the protections, particularly land protections, but generally that the airport looks after to ensure that we have services provided for that period. The green areas are the airport operational areas, so the runways and taxiways, apron spaces, etc. The light blue areas are the aeronautical commercial areas. So these are areas that have various different general aviation businesses, some of it's private aviation businesses, and some of its future aeronautical commercial activities. So particularly the area in the top right corner there is the Northern Precinct development that Scott alluded to, and that reserves about 15 to 20 hectares of land that's essentially airside for future aeronautical activity as part of that development. So there's a significant amount of protection in there for aeronautical land. And then the light pink, purple shaded areas are the commercial or other commercial developments or future commercial developments, as I say, through that Northern Precinct development. And the light yellow areas for sort of future growth that the airport might consider down the track. You'll notice as well there the Southern Links roading network that will ultimately connect us more effectively with other parts of the region. So, we're confident that the airport
area is becoming a real hub with some of that commercial industrial growth, and then its connectivity gives us a real opportunity to use that strategically and connect us with other parts of the country and the region. And there's just a list through there of some of the infrastructure developments that have been underway. So obviously there's there's the aeronautical development, there's commercial sort of growth, but also there's some base infrastructure that needs to be overlaid through that process. I won't belabor sort of the individual points in there, but there's plenty going on at the airport at the moment.
Go to the next slide, please. The Northern Precinct, so it's 100 hectares of land airport currently owns. A neighbour, adjacent landowner, also has 30 hectares, high net worth family. We've done a joint application to rezone that land to industrial development. So particularly around the Hamilton sub-region, if you like, was a real challenge around finding affordable land that's well serviced. So we're fortunate to have already developed about 70 hectares around the airport through Ōtorohanga Park. This is obviously situated south of Hamilton near Te Awamutu and Cambridge, well located on the state highway network, and just recently announced the National Roads of Significance of Southern Links as well. So it has the ability to connect directly onto Southern Links through land holdings we own. There's a few key sort of colours on that map up there. I appreciate it's a little bit small. The green hockey stick down there, which is an ecological reserve on site that the airport would retain. There's some purple shaded areas there, which is the southern land already acquired by the Crown for Southern Links, and some little red outlines that's known roosting areas for bat habitat, the long-tailed native peka bat. And then this yellow, long, thin sliver there, that's an 11 hectare property the airport's acquired as an ecological reserve. So on our airport, on the airport's farm, there's been some previous bat activity. It's a transit route for bats. It's not a roosting site. So we've idea is to connect the green hockey stick, which is a known bat area on the airport, connecting that via the yellow ecological corridor we've acquired land for, to the Waikato River, and the end of that, that's on the top right corner, the edge of that yellow area is the Waikato River, which is a well-known biodiversity corridor. So providing an alternative solution rather than eroding habitat, trying to do our best to create an alternative site. And in there, not on that map, it's very recently we've commissioned acquired another block that completes a full network. So that was the plan change was awarded by Waipa District Council about 12 months ago. It was appealed on the very last day. The appeals period closed because that same day the new national policy statement on Indigenous biodiversity took effect. But look, gone through the appeal process, it's been very amicable. It hasn't involved trips to court. It's been a really good mediated outcome. As all the parties agree, having sort of an ecological corridor, just creating a reserve in the area, and it's going to benefit other developments, so peacocks around Hamilton City and Southern Links. I think we're going to see a lot of the challenges in the region. So we started something here that we're really pleased for. The final, if you like, the paperwork that goes with the consent order, that's being finalised at the moment. We expect it's kind of June, July, the plan change to be operative, which then will let us get on with the first stage of development next year. So look, it's 100 hectares of land. It's probably going to take 15 or 20 years to develop properly. It's a legacy investment for the airports. The idea out of this, previously Ōtorohanga Park sold land and recycled capital, much more measured around selling land. This time very conscious that we can't keep selling land and just reinvesting the money. So it's now about investing in a sustainable income. So we'd like to hold a number of properties that we can, own some buildings as well, and some really high quality commercial properties. We're seeing those of you that probably followed Ruakuru's development as well, we're seeing that spill over to the region. So it's a long-term, slower burn development, but you're much more measured with the view of a sustainable income rather than immediate cash source. So expecting your first construction to start next summer, and so over the next decade, some really material uptick to come through. Significant balance sheet value at today, the land's valued at about 80 million. With a plan change of things over the next year, we expect that to be worth probably close to double that, and an opportunity to be worth $500 million in the next decade. So a really significant opportunity. A 5 or 10% return on that is clearly a significant income stream. Sound big numbers, but in our predecessors, maybe 10 years ago, the numbers I talked about are the numbers we've seen realised today. So I'm confident that will be with that quantum and will be delivered. That's the next slide, please. Just how we performed, so this is against our statement of intent for 2024, a half year recap. So the green dots are good, those are targets we've met. Pleased that the second year in a row we've put a climate change and energy reduction target. We're not required to do it under the new task force for climate change disclosures reporting. We're not caught by that. We've chosen to do it anyway. Pleased to report we've met energy and water reduction, and that's without solar farm. That's actually just using less power. It's not using the same amount or more power, but in a sustainable way, it's using less power as well. Just the yellow dots, profitability, as I mentioned earlier, we're growing the business, which is great. We've probably, like you, felt a bit of a pinch in the economy that we didn't expect. We're profitable, just not to the level we wanted. And same with property and infrastructure. We had some KPIs around infrastructure to deliver. That was to enable some aeronautical development and some commercial property development. We're committed to doing it, and we will do it. It's just that the counterparties and our tenants haven't done their development, so sort of no one benefits from having a road to nowhere, which I'm sure you appreciate. So when the time's right and they're doing their development, we'll meet those obligations then, and not seeing any risk around it's going to cost us twice as much because they've waited too long to do it. So yeah, otherwise, look really pleased with the results. Been a challenging year, but we seem to continue to get pretty close. Full year result, I think again will be close to budget. Might not be quite close. I think this is about our last slide. Financial results, I think we've probably spoken. It is growing, just not quite like. Been quite yet for themselves last year, every themselves sold hostages and plans. Still the precinct is developed out. We're not going to say that they 10, 15, $20 million land sales that have made big profits. We're fairly 2 or 3 years before we see any material activity. Hotel first, it's only 5 years now, I believe. With COVID and disruption of rebuilding, it's been on queue. This is the first year we've actually had 12 months of trading. So it's unusual in a business that I know 5 years, what a normal year looks like. Look, again, it's a bit like the airport, probably felt the perch around discretionary travel. It's a lot of corporates. It's great product doing well. If you go to TripAdvisor, it's one of the top, it's sort of number consistently sort of like, for properties up there. Again, it's doing what we decided for a business case. It's returning profit, just not as much as before. So again, I think that's broadly that tourism more than the airport. Like you, interest rates and inflation are topical challenges to navigate at the moment. Some of the projects we've taken on, we know interest rates are high at the moment. We know they're not going to stay high forever. So we're certainly, we've done some things that other businesses might not do, but looking through it and committing to build something today that actually it's going to take 2 years to build. By the time you actually have the debt service, the interest rates come back. So we're continuing to invest, not just by interest rates. But yeah, we have felt the pinch with inflation. And obviously that's what that looks like around future price setting, much as I'm sure that actually having all future rates look like. And just investment, as I mentioned, that's with interest rates. We're continuing to invest. We are a long-term investor, so we're not sort of showing up shop. And I think just our last slide finally talks about 2024 outlook. So it's one last slide I think we've got to go. Look, the hotel I think will be much like the airport, will be a little bit of a subdued sort of next 12 months. More the precincts, probably nothing further to add there, just where we are. We've been able to pretty confident now. This presentation's gone to a few councils over a few months, so we don't know what that is. Probably quite would resolve the environment court mediation. So yeah, I think a pretty clean pathway there. Aeronautical opportunities, they're still coming at us. Probably the obvious one to talk about is international, and it's been topical at 1 or 2 other councils and the media. Look, we have received, we've received some inquiries where multiple airlines have contacted us. There's various reasons for that. Probably hasn't escaped your attention, the media, of the challenges Auckland Airport are facing around development and constraints. So they're pretty well at capacity now. They obviously need to invest and to undertake a big sort of once in a generation expansion. And that has challenges with it, unfortunately, increased prices. So we're at a point where we can be cost effective to some airports. Obviously Auckland last year as well hit really punitively with flooding, and what that sort of was a bit of a wake up call for the aviation industry. And there's a role we can play in supporting an event like that again, where we can be a divert airport or an alternate airport. So yeah, just high level, our runway is longer than Wellington, which of course and Queenstown both receive international flights. So we're not out there waving a banner to airlines, please come and see us, but we very much are seeing a changing of the tide that airlines are seriously looking at Hamilton as a viable catchment in its own right. And what role it can play to support their operations into Auckland presently, and what future role it can play as a cost-effective alternative. Because there will be a challenge when in Auckland, and then obviously once capacity back on. Equally, our response needs to understand Auckland's going to be constrained for a few years. What happens after that? So how can we play a role that supports international tourism for 5 or 6 years, but not make an investment that relies on much long-term recovery as well. So being very measured around that. But yeah, we have received some very credible inquiry, and the first we've received this kind of decade. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated when as sort of material developments happen. Then as infrastructure and capital works, as I've talked about the investment we're doing there, there's no really big projects over the next 12 months. And maybe general aviation strategy, Ben, might be to wrap us up with.
Yeah, so our general aviation precinct is the tough sector, and it's a lot of smaller aviation businesses, and they tend to have a range of different services provided, from sort of training and ag work to sort of your general tourism. There's lots of maintenance providers. There's aviation part manufacturers. There's a real range of sort of services in there, and we're seeing, as an airport company, it's hard for us to capture that group and make sure their needs are represented appropriately and distributed fairly, where the airlines are obviously loud and proud. And so we're going through a process through this GA strategy to really try and quantify and qualify, if you like, the value that sector brings to the region, to the aviation community at Hamilton, and to the wider sort of aviation network. And so there's some real digging going in around there, and working closely with those different operations to sort of understand that. And as well, looking from an airport perspective, what's appropriate for us in terms of concessions, or in terms of incentive to try and help them along and help them stay at the airport and try and foster and grow that aviation aeronautical business. Bearing in mind that it is challenging for them to be operating in that environment, and they don't really have the same opportunity as some other businesses to operate anywhere. They have to be at an airport. So with that, how do we make sure that we're working with them to achieve it? Particularly rising land values puts additional pressure on that, and we've seen as well, particularly with some of these operations, they have fairly small footprints on the land, and so can find themselves in awkward situations around that. So it's how do we optimize as well those land utilizations and make sure everyone's able to sort of stay and grow. So that's a project that we're working on at the moment, and hope to have sort of finalised around middle of this year, and then be able to use that information as a resource to help guide sort of decision making down the track with that sector.
Yeah, just a couple of final remarks from me. So yeah, 10-year strategy, talked about diversification. We're an airport. We've talked about a lot of things here today that aren't airport related. That served us really well. We've of course weathered not only COVID, but the realisation in COVID that our terminal needed some upgrades to meet seismic requirements. So 2 big storms weathered there. So I think the strategy served us well. We're continuing, still believe that's the right course of action, and we're continuing on that course of action. Yeah, we've seen some big numbers in the previous years, big profits and things, driven largely by land sales. But we do have some challenges ahead. Sort of probably in the next 3 to 5 years, we need to spend around 20 million on permanent infrastructure, roads and waters and things. Fortunately, we're an airport, so we're not a council. We don't rate those. That's just infrastructure we need to continue to have, get customers to the airport and allow our tenants to succeed. So there's no real return on that investment for us. Although some of you, I'm sure, question whether there's return on you as well. I hope that that's not here to debate rates. But yeah, so we've seen some big numbers in the P&L. Unfortunately, we're probably now in a period that's not unexpected. We're going to see some big numbers in debt and big numbers on the cash flow statement. So just any sort of interpretation of previous results just need to take the full picture of what that looks ahead. But I think for now, really proud of what we've done as a quite a diverse business. So that's really all we had. So yes, it's up to you to questions or maybe you want to take it. Yeah.
Awesome, thanks guys. Are there any cash-strapped shareholders that are looking for a strategic buyout by Ōtorohanga District Council?
Yeah. Probably 1 or 2. Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Just in With the Air New Zealand fleet having obviously some maintenance issues that has obviously restricted the flights coming in and out of Hamilton to a degree. Is there a timeline that they expect those problems to be resolved, that you'll get back to full capacity?
Yeah, they signalled initially about 2 years, and we haven't had an official update on that, but we're about 9 months in, so we're expecting probably at least until the end of this year and maybe early next year to have some sort of constraint on the schedule. And we've just gone through, I mean, we've had various conversations with New Zealand about this, but we're going through a process at the moment of really fine tuning that data, so that we can try and land more formally with them. And ultimately, there's not much they can do about it. I mean, they redirect traffic to us. They're going to be someone else is suffering. So it's just making sure that our needs are being represented and they're getting the balance right.
It's unfortunate because it's not the fault of the airport at all, but certainly you talk about discretionary travel and you look at some of the big corporates that have pretty much put a cut to all their travel for staff. And so you're in that interesting place where you want the numbers, but the corporates are pulling out because of the cost. So I'm sure those are discussions you're having ongoing constantly.
Yeah, very much. Well, yeah, we're very conscious of the cost, and we do track that data very closely. And so again, that just forms part of that conversation to make sure that it's viable. There's real issue in New Zealand with the sort of point-to-point travel as well. You know, going to Christchurch and Wellington is one thing, but when you try to go to another sort of destination, it gets innumerably expensive very quickly. So again, that's part of that landscape that we keep the pressure on. And that we're looking for options around.
Just on a personal note, I'd be appreciative of a Queenstown flight.
Yeah. I think, but you're right, I think everybody would love to be able to fly everywhere, but the best at the moment, the best we can do is advocate for connectivity. So actually, the airfares are a real challenge to get connect from region to region. Step one is actually improved connectivity, so getting flight times. A lot of us we live in a region where we have alternates. We can go to Auckland, most of us. It's actually not that far to go to Ōtorohanga. You know, it's an hour and a half. Most of us can be at another region port. So first bit is actually getting flight schedule that works. That entices some people. As more people do it, you can get the price down. So there's multiple steps. So we do monitor connecting traffic. Queenstown through COVID, it really boomed, and that's understandable because we couldn't go too many other places for pretend we're having a holiday. But yeah, it's held up, and traffic's held up really well. But I think we are advocating for improved connectivity, and yeah, understanding the challenge around regional fares. Out of Hamilton, we probably haven't actually been as punitively hit with airfares. So if you go back 2 years, our airfares are not substantially different. Talking $5-10 is an average fare difference. There are horror stories. I know you can go on last minute and it's $500. That's really demoralising. But average fares are within $5-10 of what they were a few years ago. And out of Hamilton, direct to our ports, Christchurch and Wellington, we generally are always cheaper than Auckland. The average fare is significantly different. So yeah, at an average level, which we're lucky to see, we're not going to on grabs once a week, once a month. We are actually well represented as a region.
It's not the fears. I go to Ōtorohanga. It's not the fears. It's actually that I used to be able to get there in 3.5 hours from Hamilton. Now it's 6 to 10 hours to get there. So yeah, if you can sort that, that would be great.
You got some friends in Copenhagen, they could help advocate as well. Yeah. I think us to Christchurch is probably the challenge that unfortunately across the Southern Alps, Tanya. Yeah.
As you can see, both the Mayor and CE are really concerned about themselves.
Yeah.
Look, is there any questions from councillors? Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Hey, good to see you guys. Thanks for coming down. Questions. You talked about interest rates. Are your interest rates pretty much on a commercial basis, or are you able to piggyback in some way to your councils to get a better deal? Or
we had explored LGFA as a funding solution, so we are firstly just with Bank of New Zealand, over commercial interest rates. Have explored LGFA. The challenge with LGFA is it goes back to the councils, shareholders to underwrite it as a guarantor.
Right.
And then obviously the ability of individual councils to borrow that in proportion to the shareholding as well. So Ōtorohanga would appreciate it if you underwrite 20% of debt, but there becomes some dynamics of you having 3% shareholding and 20% of debt. And then I'm appreciating most councils have a debt ceiling constraint.
Yeah, no, okay, good answer, thanks. You talked about, Hamilton being an alternate. And I heard, was it this morning or last night, that Qantas are talking about, upping the game in terms of Trans-Tasman stuff. They're talking about thousands of additional seats. So if you are able to attract, a Qantas into Hamilton, that would actually ring alarm bells, I would imagine, for Air New Zealand, who may want to then come back and actually offer a similar service to what they used to provide when they had freedom and those sorts of things. So I'm not asking for information here. I'm just saying if Qantas is one of the ones that you're talking to, I'll keep working on that one. I'm just interested too, of your total operating revenue, what percentage of that is your car park?
Over a 12-month period, about 10% across the group.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so your operating revenues were about roughly 9 or 10 million.
Yeah, 10 million per half year, so it's probably the same million or so with the car park.
Yep, yeah, cool. Okay. No, that's all from me. Thank you.
I was at a shareholder meeting where Mark was challenged around the decision to not do the international runway, and it was really interesting that day to hear him say they can still land in an emergency. We can still land a loaded craft. It just can't take off again with all passengers. But in an emergency, who's worried about whether you bus out of Hamilton or don't get to land anywhere? So it's really good to hear you talking more around being able to handle those internationals, not without a payload, obviously, but good to know that we are still in that. Is fog still commercially sensitive?
No, it's not. So some of you, we invested in a company called Hypervision. They are basically operate a drone. The drone uses a chemical that's been in existence for, say, since Adam was a boy. The idea is that they put it finally into the atmosphere and absorbs moisture and dissolves the fog. It's been, we're a small shareholder, obviously supporting it as a landlord. They're based at the airport. Operation events team were the first airport in New Zealand to have drones operating in commercial airspace and commercial flights. A lot of regulatory hurdles to go through there. It's supported through the likes of MB and Callahan Innovation. Look, it's been a really disruptive technology. Drones at airports. If you Google what happens in Europe, every time someone tries to take a holiday for a drone, it shuts Europe airspace down for days at a time. But it's been a challenge. It's the product does work. The challenge that they're overcoming at the moment is consistency. So no two fogs are the same. Unfortunately, they're not. But I'd say the product does work. It's using it consistently. That's certainly been a challenge for. And I think will continue to be, but yeah, it does work. Just we need to obviously, before anyone or an airline's going to invest heavily in it, or an airport's going to invest heavily in it at a commercial level, you need that reliability. That's the challenge at the moment.
So we still continue to need additional accommodation at our destinations to avoid the challenge of not getting on the flight in the morning.
Unfortunately, if you're flying in the morning, that's, yeah, if you're flying an early morning flight. If you're leaving Hamilton though, normally pretty low risk. So we have one of two airports has a very low visibility takeoff route. We're outside of the big three. We can take off visibility. Most airports can't operate in.
It's surprising, isn't it? Because most of the time we can't leave.
Yeah, so
first flights you can when the flight's on the ground. You
yeah,
invariably get out as the one coming in, but you can't.
So if you're on a flight after about sort of 7:30, 8 o'clock, that usually depends on an aircraft getting here. That's a challenge. The earlier departures are very reliably up.
So just get up early.
But I think important to note, we're a net receiver of diverted flights. So we generally receive more diverts in than we lose aircraft out. For context. So the reputation for fog is not unjustified, but I think probably other airports and media would like to exaggerate it more than it's actually.
Perhaps as a supportive shareholder, you could give us those statistics so that we can argue back.
But we're seriously happy to share it if it helps with any advocacy or rumours or anything you need to dispel. Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome. Hey, well, as we all know, the Hamilton City is probably one of the fastest growing cities in the country at the moment, and it's become noticeable that residential areas encroaching south of the city. So I presume you've put enough land there where, as a buffer, it's more around noise mitigation than anything, because it's all very well people buying houses next to airports, but the very next thing they do is complain about the noise. So we've got to sort of so how has that worked in with that? Because well, how much of a buffer have we got to be able to control that?
So we have a noise management plan that helps us to manage the sort of physical, though they're not actually physical restrictions, if you like, around development near the airport, particularly protecting the approach paths sort of at either end of the airport. And we do have a community liaison group, which has some community representatives that help negotiate and present any issues that the community has with the airport when those do arise. So those are in place and functioning, which is great. Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of noise complaints in recent years. They tend to have been associated with light aircraft movement of the training centre, and with the training centre departing sort of the end of COVID or towards the end of COVID there, we've had quite a significant reduction in complaints. Nevertheless, that exact issue has recently been sort of worked through with some of the locals seeking to develop and will potentially increase subdivision opportunities. And so that's something that the airport takes seriously and will continue to protect because ultimately, we want to mitigate any adverse sensitivity that may come from that.
Any further questions, councillors?
Yeah, one last question, if I may. In the event that you do need to have a runway extension, that would obviously be to the north. Now, I think Ben, when we were on your coach trip, Ben was our interpreter and guide on our, and did a great job. You mentioned something about the hill where all maize and everything there at the moment, that if you were to extend the runway, that you may have to actually level it or take a lot of that hill away because of some do with site. Was it site or
close? Yeah.
Close, yeah. Yep. Can you just explain that?
Yeah, so look, the airport has an obstacle limitation surface, which is a protection on building either side and at the ends of airports to ensure that aeronautical activity is room to move if they haven't quite lined up the runway right or whatever the circumstance may be. But there's a building protection either side. It's not directly related to the extension per se, but also the northern precinct property development where that sort of hill is located ultimately will need to be levelled to a large extent to allow development in that area that won't infringe the OLS protections. And because the OLS protects the approach and departure sort of bans either end of the airport, it does extend it the way out. So it's not necessarily the extension per se, but it just is captured in that same area.
Any further questions, councillors? If not, Scott and Ben, thanks very much for the presentation. It's always good to get a really good update on something we have a big shareholder in. I always appreciate the free park. So we have a resolution here that Ōtorohanga District Council received the Waikato Regional Airport interim report for the 6 months ending 31st December 2023. We have Councillor Jeffrey, second Councillor Prendergast. All in favour? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'll now declare the meeting closed and we'll go into the own time.